Chapter 1040. Damn, it even gave me a mission. Han Xiao glanced at it curiously. Primal Esper ability entities were very strong, but they were nothing to him at the moment. To paraphrase an anime he had seen in his previous life, the existence of primal Esper ability entities was somewhat similar to that of a tailed beast. In the beginning, it was exaggerated to the skies, as if it was invincible, but in the later stages, in the eyes of those super combat forces that could easily move mountains and fill seas and plant trees. Could this thing even kill people? Similarly, the host was like a Jinchuriki. If the primal Esper ability entities met a powerful host, they would have a chance to unleash even more power. Looking at the mission reward, Han Xiaoxin started to calculate. From the difficulty of this mission, it requires a large number of Calamity-grade players to form a team. It's a team mission in the later versions, but the EXP reward fits the criteria. 2 character summon cards, probably for the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy and the Holy Light Particle. To the players, they basically can't take over the Primal Esper ability entities, so the character summon cards are useful. I can subdue them, so the character summon cards are just a bonus to me. Only this special milestone mission seems interesting. This was usually a hidden mission. Han Xiao had seen other special milestones in his previous life, but this was the first time he had seen Primal Esper Ability Collector. No one had triggered it in his previous life. It does sound cool, but I don't know what effect it has. Maybe it's more suitable for Espers? Han Xiao stroked his chin, thought for a few seconds, and put this question aside. No matter what, he was going to push for the Holy Light Particle anyway, mainly to get another Primal Esper ability entity. The mission was just a bonus. He would see what this special milestone mission was about when the time came. Right now, he had no clue. I promise you this. I'll definitely get the Holy Light Particle to accompany you. Then, when do we leave? The Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy could not wait. It looked like it wanted to take revenge, but based on his experience in his previous life, Han Xiao felt that it could not wait to meet its old flame. Esper ability. Han Xiao thought for a while, shook his head, and said, "Not now. I still have some things to do. When the time is right, I'll make a move on it." He had some things to do at the moment. His first task was to create the King and the Emperor's Cape, the 2 gold equipment. At the same time, he also had to research a special carrier for the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy and create a mechanical host. This way, he could have a special mechanical guard with a high-risk Esper ability. Its grade was not easy to determine, and it depended on the performance of the carrier. If he could turn it into a mechanical life form, with the effect of the Esper ability, it would definitely be able to display dazzling combat strength. Of course, there were similar precedents in the mechanic class. The Beyond grade, as captured by the Mechanic Emperor, were used to create special mechanical puppets. Apostle weapons were a high-level troop type given by the class, and mechanics could create their own unique high-level troop type. On the other hand, the information revealed by Secret Master also made Han Xiao even more certain that Hela's situation was dangerous. Therefore, his main body still had to hide in the Emerald Star Cluster and wait for the opportunity to move. At the same time, players from all over the universe were rushing to the flickering world, and the situation in the world server was quickly taking shape. According to Han Zhao's understanding of the players, although he was harvesting leeks happily, the army players standing out like cranes in a flock of chickens would also be targeted by the players of other factions. He had to stay here and observe the situation. Due to the existence of the Black Star Corps, the trajectory of the players in the flickering world was naturally different from his previous life, so he had to adapt to the situation. Compared to the importance of these things, the issue of the Holy Light Particle had to be put aside for a while. Not to mention, this mission also required him to make a trip to the secondary dimension and find out which secondary dimension the Holy Light Particle was in. All right, I'll wait. The Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy did not mind. It had a long lifespan, so it was not in a hurry. It understood that Black Star's current identity was its master, not a tool like the previous host. Its only regret was that it would probably be sealed in a lifeless mechanical body, unable to communicate with others, so it was not as interesting as being played by the host. Sigh. I clearly found a perfect partner not long ago, but it's a pity that I won't be able to fuse with him. At this time, Han Xiao disconnected the mental connection, put the primal chaos mysterious energy into his pocket, stood up, put away the divine mechanical throne, summoned a spaceship, and returned with Psionic Prime and the others. As the ownership of the primal chaos mysterious energy was settled, all the retreating participants no longer had any intention of keeping it a secret. They quickly released a recording of the scene on the internet, and in just a few hours, it was on the headlines. The primal chaos mysterious energy appears, falling into Black Star's hands. The changes in the flickering world now affected the nerves of the entire universe. The primal chaos mysterious energy appeared in the free competition zone and fell into Black Star's hands. This news ignored the distance in reality and quickly spread on the internet of the various star fields. The galactic residents did not know much about primal Esper ability entities, but the super high-risk Esper ability list was very famous. Furthermore, there were two popular titles, Flickering World and Black Star. At the same time, there was a recording of the battle in the news. Therefore, it was not surprising that the news was so popular. It quickly became the topic of conversation for countless galactic residents. A few hours after the news was released, the production company of Wayne Cards announced that they would be creating a new card for the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy, possibly joining the Black Star Core faction card deck. They were also considering releasing the Primal Esper Ability Entities series of cards in the future. The players who liked to surf the internet also saw this news. While being surprised, they also remembered the new concept of Primal Esper Ability Entities. However, the news this time was mainly focused on the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy. Black Star had done too many shocking things. Compared to the big events in the past, this was not as big of a deal. Therefore, countless galactic residents and players were used to it. They already knew that Black Star was amazing. This is just a basic operation. Sit down. In a secret military base of the Dynasty in the Central Galaxy, one of the internal bars was packed with people. It was very noisy, filled with loud shouts and laughter, as well as the sound of people gulping down alcohol. The atmosphere was very lively. The guests present were all warriors and officers wearing the Dynasty's uniform. This military base was mainly used as a training ground. A large number of people from the Dynasty were trained here. Because it was a half-closed base, there were internal entertainment venues, mainly bars. In the current era, the civilizations were not too harsh on the super soldiers. The treatment and benefits were very good. Even in closed training, they had a certain degree of freedom to enjoy life. A few super key training camps were also training here. They were all members who were on the Dynasty's key training list. God was one of them. He was also training in this base. At this moment, a row of key trainees were sitting at the bar counter. They were all calamity grades. They were drinking and chatting with each other. God was among them. He raised his glass with a calm smile on his face and occasionally added a few words. He looked like he was quite popular, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. He was the most valued one among all the trainees. The Esper ability, he had had a bright future, so he had always been a popular person in the training camp. One of them shook his head and said with a smile, "Among us, the one who is most likely to break through the beyond grade A boundary is you, God. There's really no comparison. We might all become your subordinates in the future and need you to take care of us. Speaking of which, if you become a beyond grade A, what position do you plan to take? I don't think you'll be part of the ruler's bodyguard. I don't think the Empire will send you out, so they'll probably let you be the commander of some army, so you can quickly rise to the upper echelons of the military," another person said. "I don't care." God smiled. He was a direct beyond grade A of the Dynasty, so his development direction was naturally different from his allies. He could step into the core of the Dynasty's power, just like the Dark Emperor. According to the past, we might be assigned to your army in the future. TSK, we might as well take turns toasting to our future commander. If we don't get you drunk today, don't even think about leaving. Someone laughed loudly. God smiled and dealt with the enthusiasm of his colleagues. Just as the atmosphere was getting heated, God suddenly saw the news playing on the virtual screen on the wall of the bar. His expression froze, and his smile quickly disappeared. His abnormal reaction stunned his colleagues. They followed his gaze and saw that the virtual screen was playing the news about the primal chaos mysterious energy being taken away by Black Star. Yo, Black Star is doing something new again. Impressive, as expected of the next generation leader appointed by the dynasty. A few years ago, when I was baptized by the Evolution Cube, I saw him up close and almost couldn't help but ask for his autograph. Luckily, he's an ally of our dynasty and didn't get taken away by Radiance and Ethereal. This is the dynasty's blessing. They could not help but talk about this topic. Everyone there was a calamity grade who respected the strong. Many of them were fans of the dynasty's beyond grade A allies, and quite a few of them were fans of Black Star. At this time, God put down his glass, stood up expressionlessly, and said, "I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he didn't wait for the crowd to react. He walked straight through the crowd and left the bar, leaving many of his colleagues in the same place. They looked at each other in confusion. What's going on? What's wrong? On the other side, God left the bar, quickly returned to his room, took out his communicator, and contacted Beccarodi. It rang for a while before the other side picked up. God immediately took the initiative. "You told me to wait for good news, and this is your so-called good news?" Beccarodi was silent for a few seconds before slowly replying. Black Star's intervention was unexpected. The primal chaos mysterious energy is indeed in his hands now. "Then, what do you plan to do?" God was expressionless. "I'll try to salvage the situation and see if I can exchange for the primal chaos mysterious energy from Black Star." God was silent. He did not ask what he would do if he could not exchange for it. The dynasty was willing to give him the primal chaos mysterious energy because they wanted him to make full use of his Esper ability and enter the beyond grade A realm as soon as possible so that he could analyze the theory of evolution energy for the dynasty. Without the primal chaos mysterious energy, the dynasty could wait for him to grow slowly. However, to God, this meant that he had lost a major source of combat power. Without the various special abilities of the primal chaos mysterious energy, it severely disrupted the growth plan he had set for himself. He would not be able to reach the strongest state he had imagined. This meant that the upper limit of his future combat power was directly cut off. Black Star can't use the primal chaos mysterious energy himself, so as long as we have enough bargaining chips, he'll still exchange for it. It's not like there's no chance. Beccarodi was still analyzing the situation when God interrupted him. "That's all for now. Let me know if there's any progress." Then, God hung up and frowned. He was in a very bad mood. He did not want to pretend to be nice to Beccarodi. He knew very well that the chances of getting the primal chaos mysterious energy back were slim. The dynasty would not pay a high price for a dispensable primal Esper ability entity, and Black Star was a B** star who would never make a loss. With his understanding of both parties, the chances of a deal being made were close to zero. God shook his head and crossed out the name of the primal chaos mysterious energy in his mind. With his current strength, he was not qualified to participate in the battle for the primal chaos mysterious energy at all. The only way was to borrow the dynasty's strength. Since the dynasty had failed, there was nothing he could do about it. He had not grown up yet, and Black Star's force was getting bigger and bigger. If the primal chaos mysterious energy was gone, so be it. Now is far from the time to mess with Black Star. I thought that with the dynasty's help, this thing would be in the bag. I didn't expect you to cut me off. Now I have no choice but to change my growth plan. TSK, Black Star. Oh, Black Star, you really know how to give me trouble. God was in a very bad mood. Emerald Star Cluster, Moto Civilization Base. In front of the remote communication room connected to the Moto Civilization's mother planet, two guards were whispering to each other. "How long have the commander and inspector been in there?" "Almost an hour. Seems like His Excellency 3 Kings summoned them. I wonder when they'll come out." "Hey, the door's open. The door's open. Quick, stand still." The door of the room slid open. The two guards hurriedly stood up straight, stopped talking, and looked straight ahead like they were not slacking off. However, they could not help but glance at Commander Roddick and Inspector Lagos from the corner of their eyes. Roddick's face was green, and his face was extremely dark like he was about to explode. Lagos, on the other hand, had his head lowered and looked listless. Due to the pointless sacrifice of dozens of calamity-grade elites, Roddick was scolded by the Moto Three Kings and even scolded by his direct superior. Among the upper echelons, his impression was at rock bottom. Although he was only carrying out the mission given to him by his superiors, and the loss of dozens of calamity grades was not his fault, he could only take the blame. He was so angry that he was about to explode. Lagos could not comfort him. He hesitated and asked, "Our upper echelons have suffered heavy losses. His Excellency Three Kings also said that similar things are not allowed to happen again. What do you plan to do?" "It's all because of Black Star." Roddick clenched his fists and said angrily, "If we continue to be passive like this, Black Star will still be able to eat away at our strength. If we don't solve this problem completely, similar things will happen again. If we could stop Black Star, we would have done it a long time ago." Lagos smiled bitterly and could only ask, "Then what do you think?" "If we can kill Black Star," Riddick muttered to himself. When he turned his head, he saw Lagos's expression that said, "I'm afraid you're not awake yet." He swallowed the rest of his words, thought for a moment, and changed his words. After thinking for a while, he said, "It's impossible for us to become enemies with Black Star by ourselves. We can only rely on external forces. If we give the Black Star Corps a huge problem and make him have no time to care about us, we might be able to alleviate the situation." For example, hearing this, Roddick opened his mouth and felt bitter. If it was so easy to think of this, how could he have ended up in such a state? If he did not make any contributions, he would probably have no hope of being promoted in the future. Cooperating with the official advertisement. Super Godly Mechanic has released its first credit card. If you apply for the card, you will become a VIP. You will receive 8,888 coins, 180-day free card membership, 300 yuan gift pack, an exclusive badge. The first 500 cards are free to apply. Application method. App. Personal account page. Starting star exclusive card. Scroll down to find the corresponding card. Chapter 1041. Somewhere in the Emerald Star Cluster, an exploration fleet of a small financial group was moving through the universe. An organization like this was unable to occupy a resource planet and could only earn some profits through normal exploration and employment. This was very common in the flickering world. Exploration ships and transport ships were the main spaceships of this fleet. As an expedition fleet, other than the necessary crew of every ship, they were also equipped with additional manpower. They lived in a travel ship that specialized in transporting people. It mainly had living facilities, and the upper limit of the number of people it could carry was far beyond the exploration-type spaceships. Most of the staff who were not in the crew role usually lived in it. This long-distance travel ship was like a mobile space station. It was even larger than the industrial transport ship in the fleet. It took care of logistics and food supply, and it was also equipped with many entertainment facilities to satisfy the entertainment needs of the crew. The competition in the flickering world was very fierce now. If there were no daily benefits, it would be very difficult to recruit employees. As a commercial financial group, the employees were not exactly loyal, and the living conditions were also an important factor in attracting employees. The hall of the space station was a multifunctional social entertainment venue. There were entertainment facilities and various shops everywhere for the crew to spend. The hall was the bottom floor, and the vertical structure was a circular corridor. This meant that the space above the hall was a horizontal bridge made of transparent material. One could see pedestrians walking by when they looked up. It looked like a bustling commercial square with a dense flow of people. On one side of the hall was the staff cafeteria. It was lively and noisy, and employees of various jobs could be seen there. At this moment, in the corner of the cafeteria, Evans was sitting alone at a table, eating the staff meal bit by bit. His cheeks were puffed up as he chewed, and his eyes were lowered as he stared at the table in a daze. He was still wearing the yellow protective suit, and his hood was open. He looked plain and unassuming, just like the most ordinary ground crew member. 99% of the people who did this job were ordinary people the lowest employees of the financial group. The tables around him were filled with other ground crew members. They were eating and chatting, bursting into laughter from time to time. Occasionally, someone's gaze would sweep past the lonely Evans, but they did not stop at all. They treated him like air and ignored him. Evans had long been used to this. The ground crew members were basically ordinary people. Their efficiency was not high, and many of them liked to slack off. In comparison, he was more diligent and never slacked off. He often exceeded the quota, so he was often publicly praised by the team manager and received quite a lot of bonuses. Because of this attitude, some of his colleagues, perhaps out of jealousy or perhaps because they didn't like him, a former prisoner who had just been released from prison, banded together with a small group of people to isolate him. Gradually, more and more people stopped interacting with him. Evans did not mind being ostracized. He was too lazy to socialize with his colleagues in the first place. After spending many years in prison, he no longer cared what others thought of him. "Hey, Evans, you're sitting alone?" At this time, a familiar voice sounded from the side. Evans looked up and saw a familiar person standing next to him with a tray. It was the supervisor of his orderly team. There were many small teams in the ground service department, and each team was further divided into small groups. The leader of the small team was just a basic cadre with no status. He was Evans's direct superior who favored him. "There's no one around, right? How about I share a table with you? You don't mind, right?" The team manager chuckled. "I don't mind." Evans gestured for him to take a seat. The team manager sat opposite him and ate while chatting with Evans. Only then could the surrounding ground service staff not ignore Evans's table and turn to greet their superior. Evans was helpless. He lowered his voice and said, "Manager, you don't have to help me out. I really don't care about being ostracized. That won't do. What if you're in a bad mood and slack off? Our team's work quota might depend on you." The team manager shrugged. Evans smiled bitterly. This manager was also an ordinary person and a good person. Because of his outstanding work efficiency, he took care of him a lot and was quite friendly. After finishing his meal quickly, Evans called out to the manager, who was still eating. He then stood up with his empty tray, walked to the canteen's recycling window, and threw the tray in. At this time, a few people in mechanical suits walked into the canteen. They were all the most basic mercenaries. Their faces were not right, and they were filled with excitement. They walked toward him and attracted his attention. "Supers. Looks like they've taken some mental stimulants and are high." Evans looked at this group of people a few more times. Just as he was about to walk past them and leave the canteen, he suddenly heard the volume of the conversation of these basic mercenaries suddenly increase. One of them seemed to be very excited. "You don't believe that I've discovered a new way to use my Esper ability? I'll show you." As soon as he finished speaking, the excited mercenary clenched his fist, and the air around him gathered together to form an invisible ball of wind. He slammed the ball under his feet, and the ball of wind exploded, turning into tiny wind blades that scattered in all directions. The financial group had a rule that no one was allowed to use their Esper ability in public. The lightest punishment was a fine, and the heaviest punishment was dismissal. However, these grade D mercenaries who had just used mental stimulants were in a state of excitement and had completely lost their minds. They had completely forgotten this rule. The surroundings instantly fell into chaos. The ground was filled with cut marks. The surrounding staff immediately suffered an unexpected disaster and hurriedly dodged. Because the power of the wind ball was limited, the others were not injured much. However, Evans was the closest and was blown away by the wind pressure. His protective suit was cut into pieces. A smear of red appeared in front of everyone's eyes. "Someone's injured." Many people immediately gathered around to watch the show. The staff of the ground crew squeezed in. When they saw that the injured person was Evans, they suddenly stopped in their tracks, hesitating whether they should go forward to help him. Just as they were hesitating, the team manager had already quickly walked up and anxiously helped Evans up to check his wound. "Where are you injured?" "Let me see. It's just a small wound. I'm fine." Ouch. Evans' face was tense, but the twitching of the corners of his eyes showed that his wound was quite painful. His body was cut by the wind blades, and his flesh was lacerated. He was bleeding profusely, and soon his protective suit was dyed scarlet. At this time, a few patrolling guards heard the commotion and ran in. "What's going on here?" The team manager pointed at the mercenaries with an angry expression. They violated the rules and used their Esper abilities in public, causing accidental injuries. The guard frowned and glanced at the scene. When he saw that Evans was injured, he immediately looked at the mercenaries and asked in a deep voice, "Is that true?" After this accident, these people sobered up a little. The mercenary who threw the wind ball coughed. "I did it by accident. It's just an accident. I'll go receive my punishment later." Fortunately, only one person was injured. At most, you'll have your salary deducted. It's nothing. Seeing this, the guard comforted the mercenaries and turned to look at Evans. His gaze lingered on the ground crew uniform he was wearing, and he said casually, "You're Evans. It's just some flesh wounds. Go to the medical room and bandage them. You won't die." "That's it." The team manager was dissatisfied. "Not even an apology? This is my negligence. Sorry." The mercenary who committed the crime glanced at Evans and said perfunctorily. There was a hint of arrogance in his tone, and he was not sincere at all. "What kind of attitude is that?" The team manager was indignant. This time, the guard impatiently interrupted. "All right, he has already apologized. His salary will be deducted later. Don't be so stubborn." Although the guard looked like he was doing his job, there was a difference in his attitude. He was also a super. Seeing that this mercenary had only accidentally injured an ordinary ground crew member, he did not think that it was a big deal. In his opinion, although this mercenary had committed a crime, as long as he accepted his punishment, it would be best to appease him appropriately. This was more important than an ordinary person. This mercenary also had a matter-of-fact look on his face. Seeing that Evans would not die, he could not be bothered to look anymore and turn around to chat with his companions. This scene fell into the eyes of the surrounding people. Many ordinary people had complicated expressions on their faces. Most supers did not care about the impact they had on ordinary people. Ordinary people knew this very well. Even if the other party obediently apologized and accepted his punishment, their attitude was still indifferent. Seeing this, many people felt a little angry. The fact that supers had special privileges was the tacit rule of the entire universe. They were divided into two classes compared to ordinary people. This was already a chronic problem of class opposition. This time, Evans pulled the team manager and stood up with his hands on his knees. Blood dripped onto the ground, splashing into blood flowers. He endured the pain and said, "I'm fine. Consider it my bad luck. Come with me to the medical room." The team manager glared at the other party and gave up on the idea of arguing. He turned around and helped Evans out of the crowd silently. It's fine. Disperse." The guard also waved his hands. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened. Bang! The spaceship suddenly shook, as though it had stopped in an instant. Even the internal shock-absorbing system could not eliminate the huge inertia. Everyone present staggered and fell to the ground in a panic. What happened? It seems like the spaceship was forced to stop. Did we encounter galactic pirates? Just as everyone got up in panic and was about to swarm out of the cafeteria to seek refuge, the internal broadcast of the spaceship suddenly sounded, echoing throughout the entire spaceship. Everyone could hear it. "This is the Black Star Corps. Your spaceship has been temporarily forced to stop by us. Don't panic. Our goal is only to find one person. His name is Evans, one of your ground maintenance members." As soon as he said that, everyone's eyes focused on Evans. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Evans' surroundings turned into an empty space. Everyone avoided him like he was a snake or a scorpion. Their faces were filled with shock and bewilderment. The Black Star Corps is looking for this guy? How did he offend the Black Star Corps and make them go to such lengths to find him? Does he have some other background? At this moment, Evans' ordinary appearance suddenly became mysterious in the eyes of everyone around him. Black Star Corps. Evans was stunned. Isn't this a high-level organization that I can never come into contact with? Why are they looking for me? They should be looking for the wrong person. He turned around and looked at the team leader. At this time, The team leader had already shaken off his hand and was hiding far away with a face of fear. Just as Evans was about to say something, he suddenly realized that the few guards and mercenaries had walked up and surrounded him. "What are you doing?" "To prevent you from escaping. Since the Black Star Corps wants to see you, you will wait here obediently," the guard said coldly. Evans clenched his fists tightly, and his chest rose and fell rapidly. After a while, he released his fists weakly and said helplessly, "Don't worry, I won't run. I also want to know what's going on." Everyone waited there for a while. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from outside, and a group of people walked in. The upper echelons, who were usually arrogant, were all humbly accompanying the group of Black Star Corps warriors. The leader of the warriors was a Grey Beast super, and he was already a big shot to these bottom-level employees. The place became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. No one dared to breathe loudly. The group of people walked in front of Evans, and the fleet commander pointed at him. "He's the person you're looking for." This Grey Black Star Corps warrior sized him up with an expressionless face. "You're Evans?" Evans took a deep breath. "This is indeed my name, but I don't have any interactions with the Black Star Corps. I think you got the wrong person." Hearing this Grey captain took out a resume and showed it to him. "This is your resume, right?" Looking at it closely, Evans was shocked. He nodded with a face full of confusion. "The Black Star Corps is really looking for me?" "That's right. They're looking for you. Follow me." The Grey captain nodded. "Wait, I want to know, why are you looking for me?" Evans could not help but ask. Everyone present perked up their ears and waited quietly for the next part of the story. They also wanted to know the reason why the Black Star Corps would not hesitate to look for an ordinary person. Hearing this, a smile suddenly appeared on the B-rank captain's face. He took the initiative to extend his hand and said warmly, "You're the talent that His Excellency Black Star wants to recruit. Brother, welcome to the Black Star Corps." As soon as he said that, the entire place fell silent. Boom! Then, as though a bomb had exploded, an uproar erupted. "What?" The team manager's body trembled, and he was dumbfounded. The guards and mercenaries just now were frozen on the spot, and they were shocked to the point of insanity. Everyone present was shocked, and some even thought that they were hallucinating. Countless gazes of disbelief gathered on Evans. Did we hear wrongly? That famous Beyond Grade, a Black Star, had actually singled out an ordinary person to recruit him? Could it be that he's a talent that even Beyond Grade as are tempted by? I can't tell normally. He must be deliberately hiding his talent. You can't judge a book by its cover. Everyone's eyes were filled with awe as they exclaimed in their hearts. This was especially so for those who usually ostracized Evans. They hurriedly lowered their heads, sweating profusely, afraid that Evans would notice them. Their hearts were filled with regret. "Recruit me?" Evans was dumbfounded. At this moment, he fell into deep self-doubt. What do I do to deserve this? A Beyond Grade is actually interested in me? Is it really like what I imagined when I was young? Is the power of the evil universe overlord, the Lord of Destruction, the Black Demon, King sealed my body? At the same time, in the distant ancient star desert, in a mysterious base, a few figures were discussing the news of the appearance of the primal chaos mysterious energy in a private conference room. Another primal Esper ability entity has appeared. To think that it's the primal chaos mysterious energy. We have to find a way to get it. It's in the hands of Black Star. Black Star is a newly emerged Beyond Grade A in the past few decades. His growth rate is extremely shocking, and he's not easy to deal with. Black Star can live for a very long time. We don't have that much time to wait. The primal Esper ability entity is the key to opening the third sanctum. We can't afford to lose it. Let's use the products we've developed over the years. The primal chaos mysterious energy is an important material for synthesis. We have to get it back. Unfortunately, ES God's body is in the hands of the Red Empire. Otherwise, his Esper ability would be the best tool. Speaking of which, Thousand Shadows is almost ready. We should be able to harvest it soon. Before the agreed date, we have to prepare the awakening ceremony. May the glory of the primordial ones never fade. Chapter 1042. Abyss of Stars, Thousand Shadows Territory, Shadows Ancestral Land. The black, gaseous planet was still floating beside the Shadows Ancestral Land like a black satellite. Thick black energy flowed on its surface, creating tidal waves from time to time. A spaceship was hovering beside the black satellite. The hatch was wide open, and the expressionless calamity-grayed shadow servants pushed down the prisoners of various races that they had captured from different star fields. Most of them were calamity grades, but there were also low-grade supers with special abilities. These prisoners were all covered in restraining devices and were extremely weak. Their abilities were suppressed, and they had almost no ability to fight back. The scene was like dumplings being dropped into a pot. Every time someone landed on the surface of the black satellite, a black energy wave would sweep over and swallow them up, disappearing without a trace. This scene was Thousand Shadows servants replenishing his shadow servants. There were close to 1,000 prisoners in this batch, and they were all swallowed up by the planet-sized Thousand Shadows. At this time, the space beside the spaceship suddenly fluctuated, and a shadow suddenly appeared. It was covered in a black hooded robe, and its appearance and body could not be seen. The edges of the shadow were in the shape of flames, as if it was constantly emitting fog. It looked like a black cloud. This was not a remote projection of the quantum network, but some kind of mental projection. Only Thousand Shadows and his shadow servants could see it. The next moment, the surface of Thousand Shadows' planet suddenly fluctuated violently, and a black tsunami formed a shape. Very soon, a face appeared on the surface of the planet. It was just a simple eye, nose, and mouth made of energy vortexes. There was no concept of appearance. It was opening its mouth as if it was roaring silently. Two invisible mental waves were released from both sides, entangling with each other and forming a mental communication link. How's the progress? How long until the transformation is complete? The shadow asked. I don't know. Thousand Shadows is very tenacious. How much consciousness does he have left? Not much. I've already taken control of his body and inherited all his memories. As long as I completely devour his last bit of consciousness, the transformation process can be greatly accelerated. Try to speed it up. You're the core of our plan. We've tried all kinds of methods over the years and finally realized that if we want to open the third sanctum, we can only unlock it with Esper abilities. Therefore, you're the foundation of our synthesis ritual, the vessel to contain other primal Esper ability entities. Don't worry. Back then, Thousand Shadows wanted to become immortal, so he borrowed your technology to activate me. That greedy fellow dug his own grave. When he broke free from the limitations of his physical body, he also suffered from my backlash. You've given me life and consciousness. When I transform into a true primal Esper ability form, I'll be able to help you. Yes, when the plan is completed, we promise you your freedom. After saying that, the illusory figure flicked his sleeves and disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared. The surging waves on the surface of the black star sphere calmed down. The facial features disappeared, and the restless black energy returned to normal. The news of the appearance of the primal chaos mysterious energy only maintained its popularity for a few days. In the current flickering world, conflicts were endless, and the popularity of the news was gone in an instant. Very soon, other news attracted the attention of the galactic residents and the various organizations, replacing the primal chaos mysterious energy as the headline. As the final winner of the battle, the whereabouts of the Black Star Mechanical Army also received a certain amount of attention. However, they soon disappeared without a trace, and their movements were not noticed by the outside world. At this moment, Han Zhao's invisible spaceship was located in a space not far away from Hela's territory in the Emerald Star Cluster. He was talking to Ames. That's the situation. I invited you over as a guest to protect your student Hela. On one hand, I wanted to pretend that my main body is still in the base to make the enemies in the dark lower their guard. On the other hand, I wanted you to help protect the base and take care of Aurora. So, I really didn't stand you up, Han Xiao said with a helpless tone. On the screen, Ames was playing with a green force field with her eyes lowered. Although her tone was calm, it was filled with an inexplicable sense of danger. If you said it directly, I would still help you. Do you not trust me? How can that be? Didn't you mainly want to see Aurora after her promotion? Didn't you see her now? Plus, when I invited you, I didn't say that I wanted to see you. Han Xiao scratched his head and joked. I didn't say it directly mainly because I wanted to be tactful. I knew that if I said it, you would definitely agree. After all, I'm already so strong. I was afraid that you would think that I was ordering you around. Ha! You didn't order me around, but I feel like you're using me. Isn't that worse? Ames narrowed her eyes, and a green light flashed in her eyes. Sai, that's not right. With our relationship, what's there to differentiate between each other? It's too heavy to say that you're using me. Han Xiao waved his hand. Is that so? You used me many times in the past. Ames smiled faintly. The past is the past. Things are different now. Our two forces have each other in them. We've already become a loving family. As family, it's normal to joke around occasionally. Tisk, who's your family? Shameless. Ames frowned and spat softly. Seeing this, Han Xiao laughed and teased. Hee hee. Do you really want to see me that much? Do you want me to go back and accompany you? You think too highly of yourself. Who want to see you? Ames paused, withdrew her force field, waved her hand, and said casually, You can stay there and protect my student. Do you need me to go and help? No need. You think I'm weak? Ames raised her eyebrows slightly. Ahem, what are you talking about? There's something else I need your help with. Stay at Blackstar Palace and pretend that my main body is there. Since it's for my student, I'll continue to cooperate with you, but don't thank me so quickly. That's that. I haven't forgotten that you tricked me. Then, when I go back, I'll accompany you to the secondary dimension for a trip. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. Just the two of us. Coincidentally, I have to go to the secondary dimension to catch the holy light particle in the future. This way, it won't affect my work. I'm so smart. Okay, it's settled then. Ames had no objections. Although she had been tricked after coming all the way here, she had been playing with Aurora every day, and her anger had already subsided. If it were anyone else who had played and used her like this, Ames would definitely be angry. However, if the prankster was Blackstar, she did not mind. Only people close to her could do such things to her. Furthermore, this reminded her of the dark history of Blackstar using her when he was weak. She could not help but miss it. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao hung up and turned to look at the workbench at the side. He was currently in the machinery workshop of the spaceship, controlling all kinds of manufacturing equipment with his mechanical force and building the King mechanical suit. Beside him, there were already a few failed products. Although they were called failed products, they were actually all orange equipment. They were all rare and good equipment, but they did not reach the level of universal treasures in the blueprint. Not only were their performance much weaker, but they also did not have those magical effects. Furthermore, the cost was terrifyingly high. In his eyes, they were all failures. Putting away the communicator, Han Xiao finally did not have to be distracted and focused on building the king in front of him. The spirit instrument talent on his attribute interface had always been shining. This talent would only be activated when he was building universal treasures. However, halfway through, Philip suddenly appeared and said that a few mechanical soldiers had secretly brought Evans to the spaceship. Bring him over then. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. After a while, the door of the workshop opened, and a man walked in with a few mechanical soldiers surrounding him. It was Evans. As soon as Evans entered, he saw a handsome and domineering man in black looking at him with a smile. He immediately became nervous. You're Your Excellency Blackstar? That's me. Han Xiao smiled and nodded. He sized Evans up and down. His first impression was that he was ordinary, too ordinary. Evans only felt that Han Zhao's gaze seemed to be able to see through him, making him unable to hide. He immediately became nervous. Although he was usually more calm, facing a top figure in the universe like Blackstar, he could not remain calm. Evans took a deep breath, summoned his courage, and asked, Your Excellency Blackstar, I'm just an ordinary person without any super genes. I wonder what you see in me. Hearing this, Han Xiao smiled playfully. Your physique is special. I'm very interested. Special physique? Evans was stunned. He looked down at himself and felt that he was the opposite of the word special. Anyway, don't worry. I'm a beyond grade A, so I won't make things difficult for an ordinary person like you. Your life won't be in danger here. At most, I'll need you to cooperate with my experiment. After that, you can work as a clerk in the army. The pay will be much better than the financial groups you worked for before. What do you think? You've already brought me here. How can I refuse? Evans smiled bitterly. He had just been released from prison. He came to the flickering world not only to broaden his horizons, but also to find a job to make a living. He did not mind working for the Black Star Corps. The pay was much higher anyway. Seeing that he did not have any objections, Han Xiao picked up the syringe and walked to Evans. He signaled for him to stand still and drew a tube of blood from him. Han Xiao did not lie. He did have the intention of doing experiments with Evans. Evans was the co-host of the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy and the Holy Light Particle, so his physique was naturally special. Han Xiao wanted to build a mechanical carrier for the Primal Esper ability, so extracting Evans' cells for research would allow him to understand the principle of compatibility and speed up the research process. On the other hand, Han Xiao's injection also caused damage and triggered a combat notification. Opening the interface and looking at Evans' attributes, Han Technician's eyes sparkled. The attributes of an ordinary person were very simple. Only two special talents caught Han Xiao's attention. One of them was Intermediate Luck Glow, which proved that he was a main character. Han Xiao guessed that the reason why it was intermediate was because while Evans obtained power, he also gained an enemy in ES God. The other special talent was called Top Esper Ability Affinity Physique. Its effect was related to the Esper class and could greatly increase the compatibility of primal Esper ability entities. At the same time, when being attacked by an Esper, there was a chance to recover a certain amount of health and energy. Furthermore, the difficulty of developing one's own Esper ability would be greatly reduced, and the power of one's Esper ability would be greatly increased. It could even passively increase one's Esper ability potential. No wonder he can have two primal Esper ability entities. This talent is practically the perfect mechanical sense of the Esper class. Its effect is way too domineering. Han Xiao was amazed. Normally, with this talent, everyone should be able to awaken as an Esper. However, Evans was an ordinary person, so this talent was wasted. Wait a minute. That's not right. With this talent, how can he not have super genes? There must be a problem somewhere. Han Xiao turned around abruptly with a burning gaze. Under Evans' unwilling expression, Han Xiao made him take off his clothes and obediently did a detailed full-body check. Evans was a poor guy in the past, so it was naturally impossible for him to find some high-end organization to check his super genes. Therefore, there might be something missing. After this check, they really found a problem. Han Xiao looked at the report and frowned. What's wrong? Evans put on his clothes and was a little nervous. It's not that you don't have super genes. I don't know who you found to check it, but they didn't check it carefully enough. As soon as he said that, Evans was stunned. He had always thought that he was an ordinary person with no talent. He did not expect that someone would suddenly tell him that he actually had talent today. Even though he was already used to being an ordinary person, he was still shocked. But don't be happy too early. Han Xiao changed the topic, waved his hand, and slowly said, "There's something wrong with your super genes. It seems to be suppressed by some kind of drug. After so many years, your super genes have shrunk to the point that they can't be detected. It's basically impossible to awaken them. This is something man-made. Did you have any enemies since you were young?" Evans forcefully suppressed the surging emotions in his heart, seriously recalled, and said with uncertainty, "I took the super gene test when I was 10 years old. If someone did this to me, it must have been before I was 10 years old. But how could I have made an enemy when I was young? Unless it's because of my family, but I'm just a normal family. How could it be?" His expression kept changing. It was fine if he did not have talent, but today he found out that he actually had talent, but it was destroyed when he was young. What was destroyed was not only his talent, but also decades of his life. Evans had already accepted his fate, but now anger was burning in his heart. Clap, clap. Suddenly, Han Shao clapped his hands and interrupted his memories. All right, don't think about it if you don't understand. You can look into it yourself in the future. Let's talk about something more serious. I might have a way to help you awaken. Evan's body trembled. Suppressing his excitement, he asked with a deep voice, "What should I pay?" Very simple. I originally thought that you were just an ordinary person. If you can awaken your Esper ability, just fight for me. Han Shao paused, smiled, and slowly said, I've looked into your information. When you were still an ordinary person, in order to protect your friends, you thought of a way to kill a low-grade super in a fit of anger. Not every ordinary person has such courage. You have the talent to fight, and you once refused to accept your fate. Maybe the many years in prison have cooled your passion, but now you might have a chance to be reborn. I only hope that you don't waste it. Okay, Evans answered without hesitation. At this moment, his eyes were filled with determination. His temperament was completely different from before when he had accepted his fate. He was like a sharp sword covered in dust that had shed its rust and dust, revealing its sharpness. Seeing this, Han Shao took out a bottle of life potion that Aurora had made. Evan's symptoms were that his super genes had shrunk and lost all activity. As long as he injected enough life energy, he would be able to recover, and the life potion was the most suitable antidote. Taking out a syringe gun, Han Shao injected 1/10 of the golden potion into Evan's body, afraid that he would not be able to take it. Buzz! The next moment, Evan's entire body glowed. His entire body was filled with rich vitality. This light only disappeared after a few minutes. Evan stood on the spot with his eyes closed. His entire appearance was completely different. He could not be any healthier. The strain and internal injuries left behind by his prison life had completely disappeared. How do you feel? Like a new life. Evans opened his eyes, and the golden light in his eyes slowly disappeared. He looked at Han Shao with gratitude. Han Shao nodded with satisfaction and asked, Did you sense your Esper ability? Hearing this, Evans frowned and carefully felt the changes. He was a little hesitant. It does seem a little different. I seem to have a new sense. It should be an Esper ability. Use it for me to see. Han Shao was curious. Evans nodded. He tried for a long time, but did not find any changes. He said with uncertainty, It seems like I can't control it. Has my Esper ability really awakened? Those who had just awakened were all grade supers, but even if they were very weak, an Esper would not be unable to control their Esper ability. Han Shao frowned. He felt that things were not simple. He injected Evans again and checked the combat information. However, with just one look, Han Shao froze. He rubbed his eyes and almost thought that he was seeing things. After looking at it for more than 10 seconds, he finally came back to his senses. He looked at Evans strangely and mumbled to himself. No wonder, no wonder. Do you know my Esper ability? Evans could not help but ask. Han Shao exhaled, patted Evans' shoulder with a complicated expression, pursed his lips, and said earnestly, Don't worry. You have to be a good person in the future. Then, he ignored Evans' confused expression and turned his back to Evans. His mouth kept twitching, and he roared in his mind. F*CK Uncle Lee. This kid's ability is also to absorb Esper abilities. Exactly the same as ES God. No wonder all those special things about this guy in my previous life make sense now. You really are ES God's nemesis. Is this the choice of the Gate of Fate? He had taken the primal chaos mysterious energy and caused Evans to lose the chance to change his fate. Han Shao originally felt a little bad and planned to compensate him. But now, the primal Esper ability is not worthy of you. You are my biggest gain from this trip. Recommended book title, The Age of Advent of the Heavens. Introduction. At the end of the era, the primordial world shattered, the celestial realm collapsed, the celestial court fell, and the heavens shattered into billions of pieces scattered in the chaotic void. After the end of the era of heaven's voyage began. Billions of pieces of the heavens descended, plundering resources and ancient inheritances, ascending step by step, and rebuilding the celestial realm. Chapter 1043. Esper ability. Copy. This was ES God's core ability, but it had appeared on Evan's body. Han Zhao's first reaction was to suspect that Evans had something to do with ES God, and a 2 million-word romance instantly popped up in his mind. However, after thinking about the plot in his previous life, he dismissed this thought. The possibility of it being a coincidence was higher. In the universe, there were many Espers who had awakened the same ability. Fire, water, force fields, these abilities were all common. It was not impossible for another Esper who could absorb Esper abilities to appear. However, such a coincidence still gave Han Zhao a sense of déjà vu. ES God had not been locked in the space-time amber for many years, and a new generation of ES God had appeared in the outside world. Could this be a cycle? And there had to be a Meow King? I didn't expect to meet a new ES God. Han Zhao was secretly surprised. With Esper ability, Copy, he would definitely walk the path of absorbing other people's Esper abilities. Evan's talent had been suppressed, but now he had no choice but to start stealing other people's talents. This was too dramatic in his eyes. Obviously, without a firm belief, the growth of this Esper ability could easily cause the owner to fall. Evans, on the other hand, had experienced decades of mortal life and tasted the bitterness of the lowest level. Perhaps he would not be as aggressive as ES God, but it was also possible that he had hidden resentment in his heart and had suppressed it for a long time before erupting. This was hard to say. He's a double-edged sword. If he can be used by me, he'll be a force with extraordinary potential. I have to try my best to guide him to stand on my side. Now that I've done him a favor, his loyalty should be very high. However, if he shows signs of falling one day, I can only kill him to prevent a second ES God from appearing. Han Zhao pondered. Although Esper ability, Copy was strong, what was terrifying was ES God himself, not this Esper ability. In ES God's hands, all the absorbed Esper abilities could unleash the power of a beyond grade A super. However, without strength as a foundation, it would be futile no matter how many Esper abilities he absorbed. He was as ferocious as a tiger, but his damage was 250. No matter how flashy his methods were, he would still be defeated. Absorbing Esper abilities was to increase one's combat ability. It was counted as an ability and would not quickly increase one's level and attributes. Therefore, if Evans wanted to increase his grade, there was no shortcut. He had to train slowly like other Espers. Even if he had talent like top-grade Esper ability affinity physique, he would not be able to reach the sky in a single step. Now that Evans had just awakened, his ability was still extremely weak, only around grade E or so. Although his template was the overpowered ES God, how long had ES God lived? How much combat experience had he accumulated? God knew how long it would take for Evans to reach the beyond grade A level. Because this Esper ability was too rare, Han Zhao wanted to help him plan his growth path so that it would not be wasted. The example of ES God had already shown the limitations of Esper ability, Copy. If he absorbed too many Esper abilities, there would be a risk of his genetic chain collapsing. An Esper ability. An Esper ability physique. Esper ability affinity Esper ability, and Esper ability at low grade is Esper ability was. However, due to Evans' Esper ability affinity physique, the number of Esper abilities he could absorb should be higher than ES God's. Furthermore, Esper ability Copy did not necessarily succeed in absorbing Esper abilities, but had to go through a trial. ES God had basically absorbed Esper ability users whose grade was lower than his own before using his own strength to unleash the power of a beyond grade A Esper. Therefore, it went very smoothly. In Han Zhao's memories, there was a friend called Geomaji who used small formless method to activate Baldi's 72 ultimate techniques. His combat style was quite similar to ES God's. However, the success rate of absorbing the Esper abilities of someone of the same grade or even higher would be very low. Therefore, If Evans wanted to absorb Esper abilities of someone of a higher grade, there would be very harsh conditions. For example, the target would be on the brink of death with extremely low stamina, energy, and health, or the target would be captured. In short, only when the target was of a higher grade and could not resist would there be a chance of success. God has been collecting Esper abilities for so many years, and his main Esper ability is very powerful. It's a pity that Evans can't absorb Esper abilities through the space-time amber. If I open the seal, God will run away. It's only been a few decades, and his consciousness won't die so easily. To be safe, I should lock him up for at least 500 years. The amber isolated all energy, and the outside world could not observe God's condition. He cannot take the risk of letting God go and open the seal. Han Xiao put away this thought and thought about Evans' growth path. Very soon, he had an idea. Evans isn't suitable for God's path. He should take the path of absorbing Esper abilities and live a happy life. God was powerful, but he had absorbed too many Esper abilities, so his genetic chain was on the verge of collapse. 99% of the Esper abilities were not used by God in battle. Although the army had a super healer like Aurora, Han Xiao did not want her to have too much contact with Evans. At most, he would give him some life potions. The reason God absorbed so many Esper abilities was partly because of his obsession. He wanted to fuse with the super high-risk Esper abilities on his own, allowing himself to transform and break through the peak beyond grade A limit, becoming a brand new creature. On the other hand, part of God's obsession probably came from his experiences. Han Xiao had seen God's information before. When he was weak, God had always been alone and could only rely on himself. He only believed in himself, so he wanted to become omnipotent and never need a partner. Evans did not need to do that, so he did not need to absorb Esper abilities at all. Choosing only useful and powerful Esper abilities might be a more correct path. Seeing Black Star's back facing him and not speaking for a long time, Evans became more and more confused. He could not help but ask, "Your Excellency Black Star, what exactly am I?" Han Xiao came back to his senses, turned around, and patted Evans on the shoulder. "Your ability is to absorb the Esper abilities of others. This is an ability with a lot of potential." He explained it once, and Evans finally understood his own ability. But then he frowned. "I don't really like this Esper ability." Evans had a conflicted expression. His talent had been suppressed for decades, so he could empathize with this feeling. From the bottom of his heart, he did not like this Esper ability that stole the talents of others. Hearing this, Han Xiaoxin could not help but roll his eyes. "Do you think you're buying cabbages at the market? You're still being picky." After coughing, Han Technician changed his tone and said in a friendly tone, "Don't worry. Since you're my person now, I'll naturally guide your growth. You don't have to worry. I won't allow you to absorb people casually, so don't be troubled. No one is forcing you to walk the path of crime. However, at the same time, I hope that you can resist the temptation yourself. Don't think about turning other people's Esper abilities into your own just because they're good. You're only strong when you're strong. Don't be impatient and walk the wrong path." God is a good example. He walked the path of depravity, did evil everywhere, and made countless enemies. In the end, he was still locked up in prison by us and lost his freedom. Therefore, don't learn from him in this aspect. Be as low-key as me, understand? Hearing Black Star's warning, Evans nodded. He had also heard of the infamous God. Although he had the same ability, he was not the same kind of person. He secretly warned himself to stay true to himself and not become depraved like God. After giving some instructions, Han Xiao had some mechanical soldiers escort Evans away. Now that he was the only one left in the room, he stroked his chin and muttered to himself, "This ability is worth training. This guy's ability is worth nurturing. As long as he doesn't take a narrow path, he will definitely become a strong person in time." As for how to help him obtain his ability, for me, this is actually the easiest part. Han Xiao chuckled. In his previous life, God had already tried to absorb the Esper abilities of players, So Han Xiao knew very well what the result would be. It was actually feasible. Although players could revive, their bodies were physical. Other than having strange restrictions and turning into light after dying, they would also be injured and bleed in normal battles, which would be reflected in all kinds of negative statuses. In version 1.0, there were even organizations that tried to dissect players. Although due to the limit of health, the players would be boiled into soup, turned into light at the beginning of the dissection. The blood collected would be no different from that of a normal species. If an Esper player was absorbed by ES God, they would also lose their Esper ability and enter the ability freeze state. All abilities related to Esper abilities would be grayed out. This state was constant, and no ability could remove it. It was just like when an NPC had his Esper ability taken away. However, when this player died and revived, his status would be refreshed, and his Esper ability would be recovered. This involved the mechanism of Esper ability copy. The process of the ability taking effect could be summarized as seize, analyze, genetic chain construct, solidify, and store. After seizing an Esper ability, copy would break it down, analyze it, and finally store this ability in the body of the owner in the form of a genetic chain. The genetic chain was a special substance produced by Esper ability copy, which was a substance produced by the owner and would not disappear with the disappearance of the player. Therefore, in his previous life, there were players who sold themselves as sacrifices to ES God for money. This was something that had never happened before, and the three universal civilizations had no choice but to come up with a special policy, stating that if the immortals took the initiative to provide ES God with Esper abilities, they would be treated as wanted criminals and kicked out of the Order faction. Of course, the player's operation was very complicated, and this policy was rarely used. However, ES God was not a philanthropist. Due to the burden on his genetic chain, he would only give out abilities that he was interested in. Otherwise, even if the players offered themselves as sacrifices, he would not want them. In fact, the actions of the players even led to a hilarious misunderstanding. At first, ES God thought that this was a scheme of the three universal civilizations, specifically sending people to deliver their heads to him so that his genetic chain would collapse. After killing quite a few players, he realized that these people were truly there to deliver cannons, Esper abilities. At that time, even ES God was shocked and said a famous line to the players. If I had met you guys earlier, I might have been a good person. Thinking about it, Han Xiao could not help but grin. Therefore, I don't even have to do it myself to obtain Esper abilities. As long as I issue a mission to the Esper players and give them enough rewards, people will take the initiative to come to me. This way, the tens of millions of Esper players would be a huge material library. Furthermore, no one would die. It was legal. Although he had determined the development path for Evans with so many materials, it meant that he could slowly choose and find complementary Esper abilities to form various tactics and achieve the most perfect combination. Thinking of this, Han Xiao was completely excited. At this moment, a new plan was born in his mind. Philip, yes, draft a new plan. The content is to record the various abilities of all the Esper immortals under the army and simulate various tactical combinations based on the effects of the Esper abilities. A combination should have at least 2 Esper abilities and at most 10 Esper abilities for the time being. Put this plan in the highest confidential file. Also, don't mention Evan's existence. Okay, this will take up a little of my computing power. What's the name of this plan? No need for a name. Just a number will do. Han Xiao thought of a name like ES God Cultivation Plan, but after thinking about it, he gave up. Although it was basically impossible for his own database to be breached, Han Xiao still chose to keep a low profile, which was consistent with his personality. He had already made up his mind that before Evans grew up, he had to hide him as a secret weapon. Speaking of which, I have the Evolution Cube and the Space-Time Amber in my hands, and the army has Hela and Aurora. If I tell others that I plan to create a second-generation ES God, TSK, I'm afraid all the enemies will join forces to snatch my things. Thinking of that scene, Han Xiao could not help but tremble. he still knew what was going on. He took a while to digest his emotions before returning to the work he had just done. He continued to build more than half of the king mechanical suit. You have built a gold-grade equipment, universal treasure. You have received feedback from the spirit weapon. You have received 1 God's trait transformation point. The same blueprint cannot be obtained repeatedly. Your random attribute decreased by 200 points. Randomizing. Randomizing complete. Your LUK decreased by 200 points. You have received 200 free attribute points. You have received Spirit Instrument, level 1 bonus, +2. 5% basic success rate for gold blueprints, +1. 2% basic success rate for developing gold blueprints. You have received the new talent, Universal Treasure Creator. Chapter 1044. You have received 1 legendary point. So, the feedback from Spirit Instrument, is this good stuff? Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Spirit Instrument was a class talent that came with the promotion to Divine Throne Mechanic. It would only take effect when building universal treasures, and there would be additional bonuses if the building was successful. This was also the first time he had seen the specific bonuses, so he was pleasantly surprised. Han Xiao did not know what other channels he could use to obtain God's trait transformation points other than promotion. Now, he finally found a new way, which was to build universal treasures. The same blueprint could not be obtained repeatedly, which meant that even if he built a gold-grade king mechanical suit, he would not obtain new God's trait transformation points. Thus, he needed to obtain other gold-grade blueprints. Han Xiao was a little curious. There were other beyond grade A mechanics who had built universal treasures in history, but in the intelligence provided by the dynasty, there was no mention of this method of God's trait transformation. Thinking about it, he had a vague guess. Some of the beyond grade, as who built universal treasures, probably did not meet the requirements for God's trait transformation, so they could not detect this effect, such as Austin. The beyond grade, as who knew about it, might have hidden it out of selfishness or other reasons and not reported it, or it might have been deliberately concealed by the advanced civilizations. It might even be that the other beyond grade as did not have an interface, and only he could obtain God's trait transformation points through this channel. Of course, it might be that the dynasty did not know about this secret, but the other 2 civilizations did. After all, the 3 universal civilizations were not a family and would not share secrets with each other. The problem I'm facing now has finally touched the knowledge blind spot of the universal civilizations. That's right, the dynasty doesn't know about the first sanctum. Han Xiao shook his head slightly. I still have the Emperor's Cape blueprint. If I build it, I can get another God's trait transformation point. Indeed, increasing one's strength through building things is the true style of a mechanic. Han Xiao thought to himself. As for the random attribute reduction, the effect was similar to point reshuffling. Every time he leveled up or evolved, his attributes would automatically increase. And point reshuffling could add some unnecessary attribute points to his main attributes, slowly optimizing his combat strength. It was quite useful. Han Xiao felt that the point reset could be triggered repeatedly, but there might be a limit. Perhaps the extent of the point reset was related to the difficulty of creating the universal treasure. The higher the difficulty, the more points would be reset. Furthermore, based on the cost of betting on blueprints, he guessed that if the same universal treasure blueprint was used repeatedly, the efficiency of point washing might slowly decrease. For example, the first time Kingmaker washed 200 points, but the second time, it would not reach 200 points. But this time, it actually washed away my luck. Han Xiao opened his stats window and saw that his luck attribute had turned into an egg. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. In Han Zhao's previous life, there was the Gambler subclass. Players had tried it, and the lowest luck stat could fall to a 0. This was the bottom line, and to Gambler, it was the last thing they could do. On the other hand, he only had 1 point of luck. When his luck dropped to 0, he gained an additional 200 points of free attribute points. Wasn't this a net gain of 199 attribute points? Am I lucky or not this time? Han Zhao's eyes twitched. Although he had profited greatly, he could not bring himself to smile. Tears were flowing from his stomach. Sometimes, only when you lost something would you know how precious it was. Brother, we can't do without you. Zero can't be zero. Han Technician gritted his teeth and solemnly pressed the plus sign behind the luck attribute. He added 1 point. In the next moment, the value of the luck attribute returned to the noble and pure one that stood aloof and independent from a world, ascending to immortality. At this moment, Han Shao felt as if his soul had been sublimated, just like that song. Me and my last stubbornness, clenching my hands and never letting go. In reality, Han Shao was mainly afraid that after his luck was emptied, the next time he did a point wash, the luck attribute would not be included in the random range. He had wasted a wave of attribute points. On the surface, he looked sad, but in reality, he was overjoyed. He wanted to do it a few more times. Including the stock in my interface, I now have 2,248 free attribute points. My endurance is now more than 11,700. As long as I have more than 15,000 points, I'll be able to get one more God's Trait Transformation point in my next promotion. I'll save it. Suppressing his excitement, Han Shao looked at his interface. After thinking for a while, he added the one God's Trait Transformation point to God's Trait Transformation, Machinery. Machinery and Void represented the main class and species, respectively. The nature of these two God's Trait Transformation paths should be the same for everyone. After testing, the former strengthened machinery, while the latter improved race talents and provided additional attributes. Now that he had the spirit weapon as a channel to obtain God's Trait Transformation points, he had to develop more gold-grade blueprints. This required him to increase his machinery ability. The main class path not only increased his basic machinery affinity and ability strength, but it also slightly strengthened the effects of various machinery abilities. The next moment, his cells operated at full power. The energy fluctuations increased rapidly, and his entire body emitted a dazzling electric light. His flesh and bones were hot, itchy, and stinging, causing Han Shao to squint his eyes. God's Trait Transformation, Machinery 2/ First stage, plus 1,000% machinery affinity, plus 20% ability strength, slightly strengthened basic effects of all mechanic abilities. Not bad. Han Shao scratched his chin. He felt that the bonuses were less than the first time. Perhaps the first time was like a grand opening gift, so it was an exception. The higher the level, the higher the bonus. As he spoke, he looked at the new talent, Universal Treasure Creator. The introduction said that creating a universal treasure meant that he had touched upon a new level. Its effect was plus 10% machinery creation performance, plus 1 to all machinery abilities, can exceed the upper limit, plus 4% basic success rate for creating gold-grade equipment, plus 2% basic success rate for developing gold-grade blueprints. You have the Universal Treasure Creator talent. Prerequisite requirements have been met. You have received one, the First Sanctum ability fragment. It's this so-called the First Sanctum again. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He now had 2 ability fragments, and he did not know what they were used for. However, the trigger conditions were so harsh, so this thing was definitely not simple. Speaking of which, now that I have the core technology, if I build more kings and sell them for money, I can subsidize my family. Thinking of this, Han Shao could not help but smile. It was just a thought. It was impossible for him to exchange his trump card for money. He was not interested in money at the moment. After counting the gains on his attribute interface, Han Shao carefully sized up the gold-grade king mechanical suit. At this time, it had not been painted yet. The appearance of the king was a set of gorgeous full-body mechanical armor with sharp edges and corners. Every detail of the armor was extremely exquisite, revealing the beauty of top mechanical craftsmanship. It was like a piece of art. There was a palm-sized triangular device embedded in the chest, which was shining faintly. This was the only accessory of the king mechanical suit, throne. As long as it was taken off and placed anywhere, the king would be able to instantly return to the location of the throne. Its effect was not inferior to the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. In terms of performance, it was far superior to Orange equipment. As a beyond grade A mechanic exclusive equipment, it provided a 1.075x machinery affinity bonus, a 35% mechanical force bonus splash range, and various special functions. It was a mechanic exclusive mechanical suit that was among the top of beyond grade A equipment. Han Xiao directly changed into the mechanical suit, like an experienced driver who had bought a new car. He excitedly tested it and recorded the detailed parameters before putting the mechanical suit away. This is really good stuff. If the original mechanical suit was a mid-range car like Volkswagen, the King would be a luxury car like Pagani, Koenigsegg, or Bugatti. Han Xiaoxin was satisfied and had an expression of satisfaction on his face. After sorting out his gains, he ordered the mechanical assistant to clean up the workshop while he adjusted the divine mechanical throne to lazy chair mode. Lying down, Han Xiao opened the forums and planned to reward himself with the crazy players. In version 4.0, the players' forums had undergone a targeted revision. A new flickering world board was added, which was like a world channel to the players. As more and more people arrived, the popularity of the flickering world board overshadowed all the other boards and became the most active channel for the players. Han Xiao browsed through the posts for a while and saw the new video posted by Porkbun. The Black Star Core series had a new episode, and the content was the deeds of the army during the version update. The number of views seemed to have broken the record again. He clicked on it and took a look. It was not that this episode was very good, but because a large number of foreign players had joined the Black Star Core, and the leak field had expanded. Therefore, more people came to understand the history of the Black Star Core, and the number of views of the previous videos had skyrocketed. Since version 1.0, Porkbun had been creating a series of videos, and there were many episodes now. The new players could watch the complete rise of the Black Star Core from scratch. As a super faction that was developed under the eyes of the players, it could give the players a strong sense of immersion. Most of the foreign players that joined the army came for the benefits and did not have any sense of belonging to the faction. Understanding the history of a faction could slowly form a cohesive force. Porkbun series of videos were now playing a huge role, like fertilizer. Of course, not every player would fall for this, but many old players already had feelings for Galaxy. Even in other star fields, the Black Star Core was not unfamiliar to them. There would always be a considerable number of people who liked the immersive experience and were willing to develop a sense of belonging to the faction. The ideological construction still has to be done. I have to instill more theoretical knowledge about the Black Star's uniqueness so that the players can feel the warmth of home. Han Xiao mumbled as he browsed through the posts. Suddenly, he saw a post exposing the Limitless Financial Group. The content was the spy mission issued by Sorokin, which required the players to purchase information from the Black Star Core players. The confidentiality of the Limitless Financial Group was actually quite good. At least, Han Xiao did not know the details from other channels. However, he could not stop the players from betraying Sorokin on the forums. It's really hard for me not to know. Han Xiao's mouth twitched. The players' forums were a special information exchange platform. No outsiders could enter, but he could browse through the players' forums. This unparalleled information advantage could only be enjoyed by him at the moment. To him, the players were a natural free intelligence network. Even if he sat at home and did nothing, the players' forums would still provide him with an endless stream of information about other organizations. Currently, the Limitless Financial Group was the organization that was most passionate about recruiting players other than himself. Sorokin, that unlucky guy, wanted to spend money to use the player's characteristics to spy for him, but he did not know that he was exposed by the players instead. Meanwhile, Han Xiao did not even have to pay anything. The happiness of privilege was just that simple, unadorned, and dry. Thinking of Sorokin's scheming face, Han Xiao even felt like laughing. I might as well let the army players accept his mission and casually sell some information to earn Sorokin's money. He's a rich man after all. It'll be a waste if I don't take advantage of him. Han Xiao was holding back his evil ideas when he suddenly saw the title of an extremely popular post. His eyes narrowed. Army players being squatted frequently. Who's targeting the Black Star Core? Chapter 1045. Squatting a corpse was a technical job. In order to protect the young hearts of the players, there were many ways for the players to choose from. They could revive on the spot, revive in the nearest city or vehicle, revive in specially bound coordinates, and even go offline without reviving. At the same time, they could only revive at most 10 times every 6 days in Galaxy, so it was very difficult to squat. In his previous life, Han Xiao was fine even though he was reckless, and this was largely due to this method of revival. However, even with such a harsh prerequisite, the players still enjoyed squatting corpses. The more common methods were kidnapping, forced landing, and so on. When the players were in combat mode, there was a limit to going offline, and there was a punishment for forcefully quitting. Thus, kidnapping was derived, bringing the target to the nearest revival location and surrounding them. Forcing a vehicle to land was the same, making the target revive in the same spot or in the nearest vehicle. However, none of these methods could completely solve the revival mechanism, and the difficulty was very high. Even if all the locations were blocked, the target would still need to cooperate and not go offline. Therefore, in the end, there was only one prerequisite for squatting corpses, and that was the other party's head. From the ID, "What can you do about me?" Han Xiao could feel an unruly and reckless aura that could not be hidden. It was like a firefly in the dark, so bright and so outstanding. In the post, this "What can you do about me?" was an army player, and he described his experience in detail. "Just now, I was carrying out a solo errand mission in the free competition zone and came to a transit planet. I met a group of unfamiliar players from other organizations. When they saw me, they took the initiative to attack me without saying anything and beat me to death. I asked them why, and they actually said that they just didn't like me. I don't know about the others, but I couldn't take it, so I directly revived on the spot and fought them head on. This group of people is really King annoying. They really squatted and killed me over and over again, killing all my revivals for today. They even privately messaged me and mocked me. CK. I was eating hot pot and singing when I was suddenly beaten up. Who did I offend? I've already posted the IDs of these bastards. Today, I'm going all out. Fans of China, everyone is my father today. With one arrow, thousands of troops will come and meet me. Please respond to my call and help me send my regards to their families. Let these bastards enjoy the baptism of positive energy." Han Xiao glanced at them. These IDs were obviously American players, and they were all demons. He scrolled down to read the replies and realized that the post had become a sea of joy. "Whip on the horse. I'm shocked." Grumpy old bro is recognizing his father on the spot. Sigma. Degree winky face. Human pile driver. I was bullied? I'll help you vent your anger. Heartless Iron Lady. 30-year-old keyboard warrior requesting to join the battle. My good brother can't take it anymore. I'm just having fun watching foreigners scold each other. If they really want to learn how to scold others, it's up to us. Can't think of a funny ID. What are the first few monsters? I thought they were looking at Little Uncle. Why are there so many literati in this game? Other than these replies, there were also some army players who were also complaining. There were quite a few who had the same experience. However, not everyone was so stubborn. Most of them were only attacked by players from other organizations without warning. Furthermore, their opponents were not only the Americans, but also players from other countries. Furthermore, not all of them were guild members. It was as if they were specifically hunting the army players. Han Zhao's heart skipped a beat as he thought about the reason. It was probably because of the butterfly effect. In his previous life, there was no Black Star Corps, and everyone was scattered. However, the Black Star Corps was currently the largest faction among the players. From the reactions of the players, this most likely had nothing to do with the NPC organizations. It was completely the actions of some players. It could be that some people were hostile to the army players, or it could be that the large foreign guilds were secretly working together. Currently, tens of millions of players were flocking to the flickering world and stepping onto the stage of the universe, which attracted the attention of the various organizations. Tens of millions of people were just a drop in the ocean to a star field. But if it was a group of immortal grade B supers, It was a force that could not be easily ignored. As part of the ecology of the universe, the actions of the players would affect others. Han Zhao's intelligence network reported that more and more organizations were beginning to delve into the characteristics of the players, and more people were trying to make use of the players. The three universal civilizations had also put the recruitment and research of the players on the agenda. The Black Star Corps, which the foreign players wanted to join at all costs, also received more attention. Many organizations were very curious about the source of Black Star's influence among the immortals. Although the Black Star was indeed very famous, they did not understand why the first choice of so many immortals was the Black Star Corps. However, there were also many players who went to other factions. Therefore, although the situation of the Black Star Corps was concerning, it was not that exaggerated. If they really took all the players into their faction, the dynasty would probably come knocking on their door the next day to question them. The other organizations did not target the army, but the players who joined them came to cause trouble first. Han Xiao carefully read all the replies and found that the ones who hunted the army players the most were the American, Japanese, and Korean players. While the other party attacked the army players, they also tried their best to avoid killing the army warriors. It was obvious that they were specifically targeting the players. He suddenly thought of something and searched the forums again. Sure enough, he found some anonymous posts that were blocked because of their words. It was a group of players from the other organizations showing off that they had killed the army players and said that they were targeting the Black Star Corps. Furthermore, they were very arrogant and looked down on the Chinese players by name. Interesting. So this is the method. Han Xiao finally understood the cause and effect, and his eyes narrowed. He was not unfamiliar with this method. It had also happened among the players in his previous life, and it had also appeared in version 4.0. This was a very insidious method, and the people behind it were definitely the big clubs. The method was to secretly organize a group of local players to hunt down the players of the target faction, and then ridicule them on the forums, provoking the anger of the players of the target faction and provoking a war of words. Then, they would secretly lead the conversation to race, country, and region discrimination, igniting hatred. The goal of this was to use the method of establishing hatred to manipulate the inclination of the local players to choose a faction. The explanation was very simple. This was because the players that the clubs of the various countries could control were only their employees and some peripheral players. The normal players of the country made up the largest group, and their actions were not controlled by the clubs. Therefore, in his previous life, someone came up with an insidious method to provoke hatred between countries to influence the inclination of the normal players to choose a faction. For example, if a faction had 1 million players, with 800,000 Chinese players being the majority and 200,000 normal American players, then the American clubs would hunt down the Chinese players and taunt them, leading the Chinese players to curse at them. Then, they would do a double act to fan the flames and change the topic to hatred between different countries. This way, the 200,000 normal American players of the faction would be unhappy and would be dragged into the war of words. Then, the clubs would continue to fan the flames and create opposition. The result would be that a considerable portion of the 200,000 Americans would leave the faction due to their anger towards the Chinese players. Then, more normal American players would be angered by this war of words, and the number of Americans joining the faction would decrease significantly. This was an important method that the big clubs secretly used to manipulate the inclination of the normal players of the country. They would create hatred, use hatred, and increase the cohesion of the local players. The reason for this was very simple. The clubs did not want the local players to work for the factions that the clubs of other countries were in. They only wanted the normal players to work for their own faction. When there were more players in the same faction, the competition for the normal players would become greater. However, to the clubs, the local players represented cheap labor. When they came to their faction, whether it was for normal development or for national wars, as long as the clubs raised their arms, the normal players would respond and become free fighters. Normal players wanted to experience the game easily, and the professional players were also worthy of respect. However, the clubs and official guilds were commercial organizations. Their goal was to obtain rankings and profits in the Pro League. Therefore, after version 4.0 was released in his previous life, the clubs led by the Americans began to use all kinds of dirty tricks to control the fans, causing the environment of the forums to deteriorate to a certain extent. This weakened the mainstream factions of the clubs of other countries, and in turn, strengthened themselves. To put it simply, they were stealing leaks. Only a few clubs of other countries did not follow suit, and China was one of them. In his previous life, China was very powerful in real life. In addition to some historical factors, they were often discriminated against by some idiots in other countries. Therefore, they were very cohesive. Now, most of the Chinese players were in the Black Star Corps, so there was even less of a need to use such dirty tricks. TSK, the first time this trick appeared, it was against me. Moreover, it was the clubs of many countries working together. Han Xiao thought about it and understood what these clubs were thinking. It was just that there were too many foreign players entering the Black Star Corps, and some of the foreign clubs did not want the size of the army to continue expanding. Otherwise, the army would have too much of an advantage in the faction competition. Not only would it suppress the development space of the other factions, but it would also allow the Chinese clubs to pick up a wave of labor for free. To the foreign clubs, this was equivalent to helping the enemy. Even during a national war, the normal players of these countries might not respond to the call due to faction restrictions. As expected, because the army is too outstanding, the Chinese clubs have become the target of public criticism. Although those foreign clubs are not targeting me personally, if they continue doing this, my league field might shrink. After understanding this point, Han Xiao did not panic at all. Instead, he laughed. Isn't this a good opportunity for me to increase the sense of belonging of the army's newcomers? The reason why the Horde and Alliance were so cohesive was because of the background story and game settings. But the more direct reason was because the players of the two factions were fighting each other. Setting up a target was a good way to quickly increase the cohesiveness of a group. Discrimination that involves real-life factors is an internal problem of the players. With my current identity, I really can't deal with it. However, I can target the main factions that the foreign clubs are in. You guys control the country. I'll control the faction. When the foreign clubs organize people to hunt down the army players, it's basically a matter of love. The faction will not give any rewards, so in their eyes, this is only an internal matter of the players. Then, if I issue a bounty mission, and as long as the army players kill the players of your faction, I'll give them a reward. From the perspective of faction policies, the army players will be able to get rid of their passivity and organize a targeted counterattack. Then what will happen? At that time, even the normal players of the club countries will happily go and F***CK you up. With the few people that the club secretly hired, how can they compare to the 8 million warriors of the army? If you play dirty, I'll kill you. Hee. Since you guys don't want to focus on your development and can't stand the loneliness, playing these dirty tricks all day long, let me add fuel to the fire and make your careers even more prosperous. With that in mind, Han Xiao smirked. He sat up from the lazy god's seat, opened the faction interface, and started to draft the bounty mission. At the same time, in an encrypted player chat channel, the executives of the professional club guilds of many countries were online. Among them were America's Devil Club and Key Club, Japan's Hydra, Amaterasu, and Werewolf Club, Korea's Kimchi, Samsung Bomb Club, Italy's Classic and Pizza Club, Southeast Asia's Red Bay, Archipelago, Titan Club, and so on. It could be said that more than half of the regulars of the international arena were in the channel. At this time, the topic that these club executives were discussing was related to the Black Star Corps. Just as Han Xiao expected, as more and more players from various countries jumped ship to the Black Star Corps, these guilds that did not plan to change factions could not sit still anymore. They secretly worked together to curb the expanding player population of the Black Star Corps. The people we've organized are acting according to plan. We're still preparing for public opinion, and the players' emotions still need to be brewed, the American Key Club executive said. The conditions are actually in our favor. China has won the Pro League consecutively, and this is their pride. They naturally have a sense of superiority, so we can influence public opinion and let the Chinese players talk about us. We can then make the normal players of various countries deliberately target us because our team's results are not good. We can let the Chinese players mock us. This way, we can attract hatred. Actually, this method is quite easy to see through. People nowadays are very smart. Don't worry, players will be players. As long as they get carried away, the cause is not important. The Pro League is a very good entry point. It's easy to influence their emotions. Let's hope it works. We belong to different factions, and the biggest threat now is the Black Star Corps. There are just too many players there. If we don't weaken them, the advantage of the Chinese clubs will be too scary. It's best to isolate them this time. Many of the executives discussed it once. As for the attitude of the Black Star Corps, it was not within their consideration at all. To them, this was a matter between the players, and the NPC faction was just a decoration. Chapter 1046. There's a problem with the computer for Godly Mechanic. The update today won't be available before 12. It's in the middle of the update. Please wait for a moment. After the update, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1047. Aleph Asterisk King Burn Your Dreams. In the hall of the base outside Black Star Palace, an angry roar suddenly sounded from the bottom of his heart. A white pillar of light lit up and quickly turned into an army player who was revived. His ID was Under Flying Clouds, clearly from China. There were many players walking in and out of the hall. Hearing this loud roar, they all turned around and looked at Under Flying Clouds. His chest was rising and falling rapidly, and his face was filled with anger. "What's wrong, Big Chest? Why are you so angry? Who did it?" An old player who was passing by was not surprised. "I just got squatted by a bunch of foreigners, and they even mocked me. This is the third time." Under Flying Clouds was furious. "Sigh, it's already the world server in version 4.0, and there are players from other factions everywhere. It's not like the previous versions when we were in the Shattered Star Ring. You have to be careful when you're outside," the old player said casually, shook his head, and walked away. Under Flying Clouds did not look too good. He was a new player who had only entered the game in version 3.0. He liked to relax and did not like to PK. In the previous version, the world server had not been opened yet. As an army player, he was basically on the same side when he was outside and would rarely be attacked by other players. Thus, he played very comfortably. Now, he did not have the safety experience of the previous version. He had been maliciously disturbed by players from other organizations many times when he was doing missions. The huge difference between the two versions made him feel very uncomfortable, and he felt that his gaming experience had plummeted. He turned around and glanced around. There were players with foreign IDs scattered around. Most of them were new players who had just joined the army recently. Among them, there was a small group of people who deliberately scanned the army players coming and going, looking at him from time to time. This kind of behavior was most likely a spy sent by the foreign guilds. There have been so many squatting incidents recently. It's probably the fault of these spies. My whereabouts were leaked by them, causing me to be squatted. Under Flying Clouds felt that he had guessed correctly and was furious. He did not like the foreign players who had just joined the army. Many Chinese players had the same thoughts as him. In the previous versions, they had played so comfortably, and everyone was Chinese. However, with the addition of this group of foreigners, they had no choice but to be on guard. The internal environment had deteriorated, and many of them were tired of playing. Beneath the Flying Cloud was a new player from the previous version. He did not have deep feelings for the army like the veteran players, nor did he invest too much time and energy in the army. At this time, he could not help but think of changing factions. "I really don't want to be squatted again. It really affects my mood." Just as he was thinking about this, the communicators of every player in the hall suddenly rang at the same time. The players who were walking around glanced at each other in surprise before stopping and lowering their heads to check the messages. Under the Flying Cloud also took out his communicator. Taking a closer look, it was actually an announcement from the Army's internal program. Furthermore, there were 3 announcements in a row. Army Announcement 1. Rookie preferential treatment policy to all the warriors of the army. Now that the flickering world is being developed, we have recently recruited many new warriors from other starfields. In order to allow the new members to integrate into the army quickly, we hereby re-implement the policy of supporting the new members. When the veteran members bring the new members to carry out missions, both sides will have additional benefits. The army will give a certain amount of subsidies, which are not limited to ANAs, contribution points, ammo replenishment, free strengthening or repair opportunities, and other benefits. For more details, please see Appendix, Benefits Description, Collapse/Expand. I hope that everyone will actively help the new members. No matter which star field you come from, as long as you join the Black Star Corps, we will all be able to entrust our backs to you. Army Commander Black Star, so this is the policy. Under the Flying Cloud was moved. In the previous version, the Army had recruited a bunch of Russian and Australian players from the Constellation Corridor. At that time, they had announced a similar policy and implemented it for a period of time. After the results were achieved, this benefit plan was temporarily frozen. The effect of this plan had been proven in the previous version. This benefit had aroused the enthusiasm of the veteran players to bring the new members, quickly closing the distance between the old and the new members, encouraging them to make friends and not to play on their own. This allowed the Russian and Australian players from the previous version to quickly integrate into the army. Now, the Russian and Australian players in the army were different from the foreigners who had recently joined. They were more harmonious with the Chinese players. The reason Han Xiao proposed this new plan was to allow the ordinary players from the various countries to quickly integrate into the army and feel the warmth of the veteran players, eliminating the estrangement caused by the unfamiliarity as much as possible. Under the Flying Cloud was not surprised by this announcement, but he was a little unhappy. Now that so many veteran players were being squatted, the army actually wanted them to bring the new members. Although spies only made up a very small portion, he could not help but vent his anger on the entire group of new members. Therefore, in his eyes, this plan was like helping the people who bullied him when he was being bullied. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. This is too much. Under the Flying Cloud knew that this could not be blamed on the NPCs, but he could not help but feel angry. However, the next moment, he saw the other two announcements and was stunned. His eyes widened in shock. Army Announcement 2. Warning list of organizations recently. A large number of immortals in the army have reported to the upper echelons that they were attacked by the immortals of other organizations for no reason during their missions. After a detailed investigation, the army has found that the situation is true and has confirmed which organizations are deliberately targeting the members of the army. The details can be seen in Appendix. List of organizations. Collapse/Expand. Although the immortals are not afraid of death, I regard the actions of these organizations as a provocation to the Black Star Corps. Here, I issue a public warning to these organizations to restrain your immortal subordinates. Otherwise, I will take it as a declaration of war. Don't blame me for personally coming to have chat with you. Therefore, the organizations mentioned in the list, please treat this matter seriously. I will keep an eye on Army Commander Black Star. Army Announcement 3. Counterattack permit before these organizations restrain their subordinates and put an end to the incidents of our immortals being attacked. We will take counterattack measures. I hereby inform all the immortals in the army that you can take targeted revenge against the immortals of the above organizations. Targets are only limited to immortals. Taking a beating without fighting back is not our style. In order to encourage this behavior, the Army will provide additional subsidies, not limited to ANAs, special materials, and contribution points. Please see Appendix, List of Rewards, Collapse/Expand. Repeated kills will allow you to receive rewards multiple times. You will need to use the Phillips subroutine to upload the recording of each battle in exchange for rewards. The recording of the same kill will not pass review. At the same time, for some of the repeat offenders who have attacked the members of the Army multiple times, the Army will issue a kill order. Every time you kill a designated wanted person, you will be able to exchange for special rewards. Please see Appendix, List of Wanted Persons, Collapse/Expand. Everyone, remember, anyone who offends the Black Star Corps will be killed no matter how far away Black Star is. Just as Under the Flying Clouds finished reading the two announcements, there was an uproar all around. Many players instantly became excited. Damn, what's this? The army is actually taking action. The PK between players will also cause a faction change. Haha, those stupid dogs, are they deliberately waiting for us? Do they think our identity as members of the army is given for free? So this is the feeling of having a backer. Nice, the army commander is still the most domineering. Look, directly warning the faction. How impressive. The recent frequent mockery of corpses made many army players angry. However, since there was no one to organize them, they could only take care of themselves and pray that they would not encounter any malicious players from the other factions. However, now, the Black Star Corps directly issued a faction announcement. The wording was very domineering, indicating that they could retaliate against the other factions. This attitude made many army players feel very comfortable. Especially with the rewards for killing the players from these factions, everyone was instantly motivated. These three announcements that Han Shao issued were a full-blown attack. First, he used the Black Star Corps to suppress others and warn the factions of these troublesome clubs so that their factions would drag them down. Secondly, he gave them permission to retaliate. Mobilizing all the players in the army to hunt down the players from these factions would not only help them vent their anger and increase the sense of identity of the army players, but it would also allow the old players to fight side by side with the new players. Furthermore, by dragging the new players from the various countries into the water and tying them together, it would be much more difficult for the foreign clubs to provoke discrimination. However, the normal players from your own countries are also doing the same to you. If you have the guts, do the same to them too. The clubs that were causing trouble had limited manpower. To the army players, this was just a little annoying. However, if all the army players turn around and hunted down the players from these factions, it would be enough to make the other factions doubt their lives. This way, a portion of the normal players from these factions would not be able to bear the harassment and would choose to change factions. This would, in turn, weaken the size of the players from these factions and expand their leak fields. Thirdly, he would issue an internal bounty on some of the enemy players who were causing trouble so that more people would see the consequences of provoking the army. This would reduce the number of players causing trouble together and reduce the manpower available to these clubs as much as possible. Under the Flying Clouds was overjoyed. He turned around and saw that many players who seemed to be spies had stiff faces. Seeing this, Under the Flying Clouds only felt that all the pent-up anger was vented out. He felt refreshed, and his sense of identity with the faction increased by +1. Haha, this is the cycle of the heavens. Who will Black Star spare? Under the Flying Cloud laughed out loud, his mood surging. He was a normal casual player, but at this moment, he could not wait to form a team to slay someone. From today onwards, Black Star is my big brother. I will fight whoever dares to mess with the army. As soon as the three announcements from the Black Star Corps were released, a storm was set off among the players. The players were no stranger to this type of mission. Was this not a faction war? The army players were in a frenzy. Many of them did not even bother with the normal missions and excitedly formed teams to go to the factions on the list. The Black Star Corps was currently the first organization in the flickering world to release a faction war mission. In the memories of the army players, when some people jumped over to the Bloodshed Land in the previous version, the army had also released a similar bounty order. However, compared to this, it was nothing. This was a large group PvP with millions of players. Players were more prone to trouble than NPCs. They could skip the missions, but how could they miss such a grand event? Be it the old players or the new players, their passion was ignited. This was especially so for the new players who had just joined recently. They were even more enthusiastic than the Chinese players. Many of them had jumped over from these factions and were familiar with the structure of the organizations. When it came to fighting their own people, they were faster than anyone else. Many of the old players were willing to bring one or two of these guides. These enemy factions that Han Xiao had listed were all organizations that worked for the various clubs. They came from different star fields and were not particularly strong. In the flickering world, it was even more impossible for them to be compared to Black Star. Therefore, facing the warning from the Black Star Corps, most of these organizations were stunned. What's going on? Why are you warning us? Did we offend you, Black Star? After investigating, these organizations realized the truth and were instantly enraged. They clearly had no intention of targeting the Black Star Corps, but some of the immortals under their command had acted on their own initiative and caused such trouble. It was like they were sitting at home, but trouble fell from the sky. Most of the organizations quickly responded to the warning from the Black Star Corps and hurriedly publicly expressed to Han Xiao that this was not their intention and that it was all a bunch of crazy subordinates. They had no intention of becoming enemies with the army, so please don't come and have a heart-to-heart talk with them. Their weak hearts could not take such a surprise. Internally, these organizations strictly controlled the actions of the immortals and made it clear that without their orders, they were not allowed to provoke the Black Star Corps. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. They also punished some of the troublemakers. In terms of interface reaction, the punished players would lose a lot of faction contribution points and character favorability. However, a small group of organizations had a clearer way of thinking. Considering the special reputation of the Black Star Corps among the immortals, they slapped their thighs and came to a conclusion. Spies. These troublemakers are all spies sent by the Black Star Corps. It must be the Black Star Corps who wants to eat us, so they deliberately sent spies to cause trouble and use this as a reason to attack us. This group of little smarts was even more terrified and expressed that they would not fall for it. There are also a very small number of organizations that had a more fresh and refined way of thinking. They thought that this was a framing and that these troublemakers were neither their people nor Black Star's people, but a third party. Their goal was to cause a conflict between them and the Black Star Corps. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fishermen would benefit. Anyway, regardless of whether this was the truth or not, this group of organizations insisted that this was the truth. And as the limitless financial group, which was currently the most enthusiastic about recruiting players, became the best target to shift the blame to. Seeing this news, Sorokin was completely confused. There's nothing wrong with it. I do have such a plan, but I haven't even started to implement it yet. Is this what it means to predict the future? Han Zhao's 3 announcements stirred up a storm and directly threw the entire world server's player base into chaos. And this group of foreign clubs that caused trouble were directly stunned by Han Zhao's 3 axes. No, we players love and kill each other. So why is your NPC faction the one that has the biggest reaction? We only attacked your immortal team, and you directly made a big deal out of it. Do you have any shame? Their plan had just started, and it was already heavily damaged and almost ended prematurely. In this situation, even if the plan could still continue, it would be far from achieving the expected results. These club executives were at their wits' end. If they really fought a faction war, they would not feel that they were at a loss. With so many factions combined, even if they could not defeat the Black Star Corps players, they could still fight back and forth. It just so happened that they could use the faction war to strengthen the normal players in their faction. However, the faction they belonged to was directly terrified. Not only did they not fight back, but they also restrained the players under them. The higher-ups were not allowed to fight back, so the faction war could not break out at all. They were completely passive. The Black Star Corps encouraged the players and even issued a faction mission. Not only did their faction not reward them, but they also dragged them down. The contrast between the good and bad factions was too stark. They knew that being bullied like this, the normal players in their faction would probably feel bitterly disappointed. Maybe some people would follow the truth of joining if they could not win and directly jump to the Black Star Corps to fight them back. They had originally planned well, but they did not expect such an unexpected accident to happen. These foreign club executives were almost worried to death. Once again, they deeply understood the importance of riding on someone's coattails. There were too many benefits to staying in a powerful faction. However, the ones who were the most confused were not these clubs, but the normal players in their faction. Faced with this situation, countless people were at a loss. I just woke up. I haven't even brushed my teeth, and you're telling me that I'm being chased by millions of players? What the hell are you doing? While the players were happily tearing each other apart, Hela, who was in the Emerald Star cluster, received a special communication request. It was from the Arcane Church, the Hierarch. I've finally finished writing. It's not even midnight yet. The list of the most recent experts includes some people who have not appeared yet. Those who are interested can search for them. Let me reveal a little. Currently, the strongest beyond grade A in this era has not officially appeared yet. I will also introduce them. The Chidian officials made a Q version sketch of Ames and posted it on Weibo. Those who are interested can follow the Weibo Chidian Chi page. Chapter 1048. Free Competition Zone, Emerald Star Cluster, Black Star Core, Frontline Exploration Stronghold. In the spacious, silver-white training room, Hela sat cross-legged in midair with her eyes slightly closed and her breathing long and slow. Red light surrounded her body, and the energy wave she emitted made the high-collared cloak of the Crimson Snake, first-generation combat suit, look like a black and red cloud. In front of her floated a cluster of bright, red, highly concentrated death energy. In the center of the red, there was a faint golden spot of light that extended out like blood vessels, spreading out with difficulty. At this moment, Hela suddenly frowned. The energy cluster in front of her suddenly boiled, as though a violent chemical reaction had occurred. It exploded with a bang, and a faint red energy shockwave spread out, reverberating in the room. I failed again, sister. Aurora's vexed voice suddenly sounded in Hela's mind. It's fine. It's not your problem. Hela shook her head. With the qualitative changes in the strength and control of their Esper ability, Espers would be able to develop more uses and effects of their Esper abilities. There was originally an exclusive life force link between the two of them. After Aurora entered the Calamity grade, the link was strengthened further, giving birth to two-way telepathy, allowing them to talk to each other directly in their minds. The transmission of life energy was originally limited by distance. At this moment, the project that the two of them were developing was an energy transmission channel that ignored distance. It had not succeeded yet, and they were still looking for a way. After Aurora entered the Calamity grade, Hela finally felt that she had the ability to protect herself. Thus, she no longer restricted Aurora from using her Esper ability and consuming life energy. Sister, actually, the life force link that ignores distance has already taken shape. I can send out life energy from my side, but I can't transmit it to your side. It's not all a failure. Hela nodded and said, actually, I received a small amount of life energy, but the energy consumption was too severe. I can only receive about 100,000th of the original. In my senses, most of your energy seems to have been absorbed by an unknown secondary dimension midway, and that secondary dimension actually has a weak connection with me. I can feel its existence. Is that so? I didn't feel it. Aurora was shocked. I only sensed it after advancing to the beyond grade A realm. I feel that if we want to complete the link, we might have to deal with this obstacle first. Previously, I injected death energy into this secondary dimension in reverse, but the moment the energy entered, I lost contact with it. I'm afraid I'll have to find some time to personally make a trip there. I keep feeling that there will be some secrets related to us inside. Let's just treat it as the intuition of a beyond grade A. With that said, Hela shook her head and raised her finger. A bright golden light spot about the size of a peanut floated on the tip of her finger. It was a trace of Aurora's life energy. She moved her eyes and manipulated the sesame-sized death energy particles to merge with the life energy. In the next moment, there was a burst of light as the two types of energy fused together. The red and gold light particles merged into one and turned into a golden-orange light particle. Sister, you've successfully fused with Spicy? Aurora was overjoyed. No, I'm still figuring out the fusion ratio. Currently, I can only harmonize a small amount of energy. Hela sighed softly. She and Aurora had tried to fuse each other's energy a long time ago, but due to the lack of control over their Esper abilities, they had never succeeded. At that time, they had thought that it was a conflict between the nature of their energy. Now that Hela had advanced to the beyond Grade A realm, and Aurora's ability, strength, and stability had also entered the Calamity grade, Hela tried to fuse them again. Only then did she realize that their energy could actually fuse with each other, but it was unstable and required strong control to maintain the balance. After the fusion, it would turn into a type of golden-orange energy. The characteristics of the energy seemed to have completely changed. Although the healing and killing effects were still there, these two characteristics were not strengthened. Instead, they were greatly weakened. At this time, Hela had yet to find out what special effects this fusion energy had. At this time, the notification of a communication request sounded. Beep beep. A virtual screen appeared in front of her, and the adjutant appeared on the screen. The shock on his face had yet to fade as he said, "Your Excellency Hela, the Pope of the Arcane Church wants to talk to you. Do you want to transfer the call?" Hela's pupils constricted slightly. She was quite surprised that such a big shot would suddenly come looking for her. She thought for a while and said with a deep voice, "Connect it." Very soon, the image changed, and the Pope's figure appeared on the screen. The leaders of the three universal civilizations often appeared on the news, so Hela naturally knew who they were. At this time, her expression returned to indifference as she slowly spoke. "May I know why Your Excellency is looking for me?" Because of the tense relationship between the Arcane Church and the Black Star Corps, Hela did not show much respect at this time. The Pope did not beat around the bush and said calmly, "I want to invite you to join the Arcane Church. I'm really flattered that the leader of a universal civilization personally invited me. If Black Star was here, he would probably say that." Hela was expressionless, but I'm not him. The Pope slowly said, "We've investigated you. You're a person who chases after power, and the Arcane Church can give you great power. You don't have to say any more. I refuse." Hela did not want to hear it at all. "As long as you're willing to join us, you can state any conditions." Not interested, the Pope paused, his face expressionless. "The reason why you're so loyal to Black Star is because of your personal feelings? It has nothing to do with you." The Pope nodded. "My promise is valid for a long time. If you change your mind, the Arcane Church welcomes you to join us at any time." Then, he directly hung up the communication. Hela looked at the black virtual screen and could not help but frown. The Pope of the Arcane Church personally came out. His sincerity was even more than the Red Empire. It was probably because of their hostile relationship that he wanted to poach the Black Star Corps. If a normal new Beyond Grade received such treatment, they might have accepted it on the spot. However, leaving the Black Star Corps was not within her consideration. No matter how good the Arcane Church's conditions were, she would reject it without hesitation. On the other side, somewhere in the Emerald Star cluster, a few spaceships were slowly moving toward the Black Star stronghold. The logo of the spaceship represented a small mercenary group. It looked like a very ordinary galactic mercenary group, but it actually carried a few Beyond Grade A supers from the Arcane Church. Sagman looked at the communicator and said with a deep voice, "The Pope has sent his message. The recruitment has failed. We could take action now." The Arcane Church had already come up with two plans. They had gathered Beyond Grade as during this period of time. If the Pope failed to recruit Hela, they would strike like lightning and eliminate her. The situation is in our favor. The Dynasty and the Black Star Corps have yet to discover that we have gathered. It's best to end this quickly and not make a mistake like last time, Taylor said. In the past, because they were separated by a star field, the Beyond Grade, as would take a long time to gather. If they were to take action, they would have been discovered long ago. Now, that a large number of Beyond Grade, as were in the flickering world, and were very close to it, the Arcane Church's actions were convenient. They could take action before the enemy discovered them, giving them no time to prepare. It's best to move Hela away from the stronghold. Otherwise, the Dynasty's allies can quickly reinforce us through the Stargate of the stronghold. I'll leave this to Tolian. You go challenge Hela again and try to lure her out. The further away she is from the stronghold, the better, Sagman said. Tolian was stunned. He was unwilling, but he had no choice but to agree. I'll try. If Hela doesn't accept the challenge, we'll destroy the Stargate of the stronghold first. It's a pity that His Excellency Sun Hunter won't be participating in this operation. Taylor, you're a mage, so your methods are flexible. I'll leave the destruction of the Stargate to you and me. Sagman hesitated for a moment before saying with a deep voice, As for Black Star's Lord's avatar following Hela, I'll hold him back. At this moment, Kasui's avatar, who had been silent, spoke. The Arcane Church had taken out enough benefits to let Kasui participate in this operation, but he did not like to attack others or bully newcomers. Therefore, he sent his avatar over as insurance. All right, none of us have the confidence to deal with Black Star's avatar. Only His Excellency Kasui can suppress him. Sagman nodded. It's a pity. If only His Excellency Wernos took action, killing Hela would only be a matter of minutes. Desolate Beast Mercer muttered softly. Don't even think about it. Wernos won't leave the Temple of 10,000 Gods. He won't participate in such mundane matters at all. Taylor shook his head. The Arcane Church had sent out 6 beyond grade as this time. They were Photon Sagman, World Gate Taylor, Desolate Beast Mercer, Red Devil Tolian, one of Kasui's avatars, and the Lord's avatar of a mechanic under him. The nature of Kasui's avatar was similar to the Lord's avatar of the mechanic class. It also carried a portion of the strength of the main body. It was not something that ES God Pseudo beyond Grade A avatars could compare to, although the number was the same as in the battle on Planet Lighthouse. After replacing Cisco and his good friend Dylan with Kasui's avatar and another Mechanics Lord's avatar, their strength increased by a large margin. Using such a lineup to deal with Hela was already overflowing. Furthermore, unlike Planet Lighthouse, there were no Dynasty allies stationed on the other side this time, especially without Milizaus. At the same time, Black Star's main body was not there, which meant that they would not encounter the space-time amber. The Arcane Church felt that the situation was very advantageous. Furthermore, their target was Hela, not that sticky Black Star who was like a sticky candy. He was much easier to deal with. Not continuing to participate in the discussion, Kasui's avatar turned around and looked at the starry sky outside the porthole with a deep gaze. Manison, you won't make a move, right? If Hela dies, Black Star will definitely go crazy. What a difficult choice. It's not suitable for you to make a move. I understand what you mean, so let me act for you. With me around, she won't die. I can't see this chapter for the time being, but it seems like it can be posted. It might only appear after November. Sleep early today. Wake up early tomorrow to watch the military parade. Chapter 1049. In the free competition zone, in another star cluster, the Radiant Federation's territory, a fleet was hovering in space. There were about 2 million battleships, and the largest flagship was an Eternal Light. Around the fleet, there were 2 large mechanical metal rings that encircled the entire fleet, one horizontal and one vertical, perpendicular to each other. These 2 super-large mechanical rings, which were even larger than stargates, were the strategic universal treasures of the Radiant Federation, the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. The components of the mechanical rings were very precise, and a large number of engineering ships were connected to each section of the rings for debugging and maintenance. At the same time, on the bridge of the flagship, the gathered beyond grade as of the Radiant Federation stood in a row in front of the porthole, looking out at the scene outside. They actually used such strategic equipment. It seems like the upper echelons of the Federation are really taking this operation very seriously. A muscular, bald, green-skinned man with a purple rune scarf wrapped around his head side. This person was Woomra, nicknamed Aura. He was a beyond grade A pugilist from the Radiance Federation, and he was extremely good at energy attacks. He was a mutated descendant of a beyond grade A race and had superior pugilist talent. He stood with his hands behind his back, giving off the aura of a grandmaster. This is related to the unsealing of the 10,000 deity scepter. It's worth investing a huge amount of resources to activate the multidimensional sky opening transportation device, Hades said. Ethereal will definitely make a move. When they take action and stall Black Star's doppelganger, we'll directly use the teleportation device to cut into the battlefield. That's right. The fleet brought another set of multidimensional sky opening transportation device. As long as we get Hela and teleport back, the battle plan will be completed. The fleet commander, standing by the side, said. The Radiant Federation was different from the Arcane Church. Their goal was to capture Hela alive and force Black Star to unseal the 10,000 deity scepter. Because of the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device, the Radiants had a natural advantage. As long as they succeeded, they could quickly escape from the battle. The multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device could send people away but would not be able to bring them back. Therefore, this fleet had brought along a second set of transportation devices and was equipped with a self-destruct device. As long as the transportation was completed, it would self-destruct to prevent others from taking it for research. If they could unseal the 10,000 deity scepter, paying the price of a multidimensional sky opening transportation device was acceptable to the Radiants. Although it was expensive, the universal civilization did not lack money. With this technology, it would not be difficult to build one. There were countless sets of multi-dimensional sky opening transportation devices in the warehouse, which gave the Radiants a terrifying strategic deterrent. It's easy to say, although the fleet has brought another set of teleporters, it takes a lot of time to set them up, guide them, and recharge them. There will definitely be interference during this period. This person was called Jackernitz, a beyond grade, a mechanical pugilist from the Radiant Federation. That's why we brought a fleet with us. Many of them are unmanned ships. On one hand, it's to speed up the deployment of the teleportation device. On the other hand, it's to protect the teleportation device from being interfered with. We also have Her Excellency Mornese's Mech Legion. It's enough to cover our retreat, Hades said. The robot on the side nodded. This was the Lord's avatar of Mornese, the beyond grade A mechanic from the Radiants. She had brought a mechanical army with her, which was the best choice to cover their retreat. Also, don't forget that Black Star is a virtual mechanic. He can invade our fleet. Romo and I will provide remote virtual defense assistance. The main artificial intelligence of the Radiants will also invest a large amount of computing power to strengthen the firewall. Although Black Star is a peak beyond grade A, he won't be able to break through our blockade while fighting while he's distracted, Mornese said. The Romo she mentioned was another beyond grade, a virtual mechanic from the Radiants. He guarded the quantum network all year round and protected the main artificial intelligence database of the Radiants. He did not participate in the operation, but he would provide remote virtual assistance. It's a pity that His Excellency, the Mecha Empire, won't participate in the operation. Otherwise, with him here, we wouldn't have to worry about Black Star's virtual intrusion at all. Hades sighed. This time, Serene, who was standing in the middle, snorted and coldly said, "Humph! Manison isn't coming, and Olu is far away in the central galaxy, so I'll lead the team this time. I don't care about anything else. Leave Black Star to me. If Ethereal wants to stop us, I'll deal with the strongest one." Star Crusher Serene, a peak beyond grade A pugilist, was the leader of the Radiance's operation this time, a member of the Ancient Ones. On the other side, a multi-pronged crystal floated in the air. It was deep blue and emitted psychic waves. Leave the mission of capturing Hela to me. This was a crystal life form called Crystal Soul, a beyond grade A psychic of the Radiance. The Radiants had mobilized 7 beyond grade as this time. Energy Soul Wumra, Lone Ranger Jackernitz, Mechanical Queen Mornese, Hades, Star Crusher Serene, and Defender Romo, who would provide remote assistance. This lineup was very strong, and they had one more combatant than Ethereal. In a certain branch of the Limitless Financial Group in the Geru Star Cluster of the Flickering World, Sorokin's manifestation stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the office on the top floor, looking at the dense meteors in the distance. These were all hyperdrive trails left behind by spaceships. This was an interstellar trade transit station, located in the territory of the Black Star Core. Not far away was one of the Stargate hubs. It was very prosperous and could lead to the vicinity of Black Star Palace. A good show should start soon. Sorokin narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. As the middleman who delivered information to the Radiance and Ethereal, he knew very well how Hela's information would cause the two universal civilizations to react. In his guess, Ethereal and Radiance would have a very high chance of taking action. While looking at the scenery, he secretly calculated the possible scenarios in his mind. The Radiance has the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device, so they have the initiative. They'll most likely wait patiently for Ethereal to make the first move. The Mecha Empire will most likely not participate, so Sierran is the most likely to take action. As for Ethereal, whether it's Kasui or Sun Hunter leading the team, they'll probably do nothing. The meeting of the gods really affected quite a few people, Black Star. Just as he was deep in thought, a magic portal suddenly appeared in the room. A figure walked out and stood behind Sorokin. With a wave of his hand, he extinguished the portal. Sensing the magic wave, Sorokin turned around and looked at this person with a fake smile on his face. "You're here, Your Excellency, Traveler." The newcomer was a humanoid creature with gray skin and no nose. His eyes were crystal yellow, and he had demonic vertical pupils. He had messy gray hair and wore a golden headband. He only had 3 fingers on his hand, and he held a staff that looked like a twisted branch. He wore a brown hooded robe and looked travel-worn. Traveler, a beyond grade A mage, spent most of his time in the secondary dimensions and rarely appeared in the outside world. On the surface, he was a neutral beyond grade A, but in reality, he maintained an unclear relationship with many supercluster civilizations. He had also been present during the meeting of the gods, but he was very quiet and did not have much of presence. "The Supercluster Alliance hired me to help you." Traveler tapped his staff and stared at Sorokin with interest. "Interesting. What kind of deal did you make with the Supercluster Alliance? You actually want me to take the initiative to challenge Black Star? Some things are happening. If I'm not wrong, Radiance and Ethereal will attack Hela soon. At that time, I hope you can go to Black Star Palace and challenge Black Star." Sorokin smiled faintly. He had secretly contacted the Supercluster Alliance, revealed some information, and made a new deal. He was prepared to interfere. "Oh, you mean? That's right. If Black Star accepts your challenge, even if he can divert his attention to use his Lord's avatar, the strength of his avatar will be severely reduced, and he won't be able to take care of Hela. If he doesn't accept the challenge, it means that his main body might not be in his headquarters. You'll have to fight Dragon Emperor Ames. From what I know, he's very close to Ames. This way, Black Star will have one more place to support him. No matter what, you'll be able to restrain Black Star." Traveler listened silently before slowly saying, "You seem to want to make the operation between the two universal civilizations succeed. What's in it for you?" "Hela's existence is a threat. I believe most beyond grade as don't want to see someone like her alive." Sorokin chuckled. "Furthermore, even if she joins a civilization, she'll choose the dynasty. To your supercluster civilization, she's even more of a threat." "That's not all," Traveler said. "You definitely have a bigger goal for dragging the supercluster civilization into this." That's fine. There's no harm in telling you." Sorokin narrowed his eyes. "Do you think the upper echelons of Radiance and Ethereal are only doing this for Hela?" No. Hela is only one of the reasons. The other important reason is the recent meeting of the gods." "Oh." Traveler's eyes flickered. "Think about it. Radiance and Ethereal sent out beyond grade as to do something like this. If they succeed, how will Black Star react? The other reason Radiance and Ethereal did this is to incite internal strife among the beyond grade as, if they succeed, the meeting of the gods will only exist in name." Sorokin's lips curled up. "I even have a bold guess that Radiance and Ethereal would rather leave 1 or 2 of their beyond grade A allies alive in this operation, using the hatred between the beyond grade as to prevent them from uniting." Traveler frowned. "That can't be. The situation isn't that bad. Who knows? I've learned something from my long life. Don't think that you're irreplaceable in the eyes of the advanced civilizations. Sorokin did not comment. Traveler stared at him and slowly said, "What about you? You're also a beyond grade A, but you're not on their side. Aren't you the same? I'm pardonable, but you're a neutral guy. Hee. If I have to say something, I don't like the idea of individual strength being supreme. I'm a businessman. I believe in the collective. I believe in the market." Sorokin smiled faintly. No matter how strong a beyond grade A is, they're just individuals. Only a diverse civilization can make the cold universe prosperous. Civilization is the cornerstone of society, the protagonist of the universe. Individuals like us who are outside the norm are just dispensable parts of the galactic society. Without us, the world might be more peaceful and prosperous. The privileges that beyond grade as have are already great enough. If we don't know how to be content and insist on reaching our hands into areas we shouldn't touch, it will only cause new chaos in the universe. I don't want that to happen. The fewer beyond grade as there are in the universe, the better. Traveler was a little surprised. I thought you only cared about making money. I didn't expect you to have such a side to you. You can think of me as the guardian of the balance of the universe. Sorokin turned around, suddenly paused, and added, "Of course, I still have to make money. Of course, I still have to make money." Somewhere in the Emerald Star Cluster, in the machinery workshop of Han Zhao's hidden spaceship, Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy Carrier, 17th Test. A silver and red mechanical body stood on the test platform. The cylindrical container containing the Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy was fixed above the mechanical body by 4 mechanical arms. Dense transmission wires connected the container to the carrier. Philip sat on Han Zhao's shoulder and reported, "Carrier self-test complete. Excellent condition. The Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy is obedient. Connection activated. Begin energy conversion." Han Zhao nodded. "Begin." As soon as he said that, the device was activated. The Primal Chaos Mysterious Energy in the container became active and quickly flowed into the mechanical carrier through the transmission wires. The mechanical carrier shook. Its eyes suddenly lit up with a red light, becoming more and more dazzling. The body was vibrating at a high frequency, bearing the burden of the primal Esper ability entities. Han Zhao stared at the mechanical carrier and fully released his mechanical sense, observing every detail of the test. In his eyes, the violent primal chaos mysterious energy was gradually restrained by the carrier and started to merge with the special conversion parts in the body. The function of these parts was similar to the host cells, used to contain and refine the primal chaos mysterious energy. After a long time, the last bit of primal chaos mysterious energy also merged with the carrier. The carrier suddenly released a bunch of red shock waves, stirring up a gust of wind in the room. Fusion complete, Synchronization rate 72%, compatibility 75%, load of the carrier at 41%. Philip reported a bunch of parameters. Finally succeeded. Han Zhao was overjoyed. Previously, the carrier could not even complete the first step of fusion. Now, it had finally merged with the primal chaos mysterious energy. Although it still needed to be optimized, it was already a good start and could be put into battle. Creating a mechanical carrier for the primal Esper ability was different from creating other mechanical soldiers. The technical requirements were very precise. Not only did it have to fuse with the primal chaos mysterious energy, but it also had to prevent it from seizing control of the body. Thankfully, Han Zhao had obtained Evan's cell sample, so he did not have to take 99% of the wrong path. A new month has begun. During the double period, please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 1050. The function of the mechanical carrier was the same as the host. While accommodating the primal chaos mysterious energy, it could use its own psionic core to unleash Esper abilities. It did not have to start from scratch like an ordinary host. and could directly unleash very strong combat power. The combat power depended on the performance of the carrier itself, the fusion rate, synchronization rate, and other parameters with the primal chaos mysterious energy. Simply put, the situation was similar to ES God. An Esper who was already strong to begin with became the host, and with the foundation of strength, he could unleash the power of the primal chaos mysterious energy right away. However, the primal chaos mysterious energy mainly provided energy, so it was just like a tool that was bound in the carrier. The one controlling the body to fight was the mechanical carrier itself, or the combat artificial intelligence part. Because this carrier was only the first prototype, there was still a lot of room for improvement, so Han Shao did not plan to turn it into an apostle weapon immediately. The model of this carrier should be called Mysterious Energy Host, first generation. I'll decide on the official code name after it becomes an apostle weapon. Han Shao was very satisfied. He had a bunch of skills that could increase the upper limit of his mechanical abilities, and there was still an empty slot for an apostle weapon. Okay, model has been recorded. Database complete. Han Shao nodded, sized up the mysterious energy host carefully, and asked, "How do you feel?" The next moment, a psychic wave was released, and the primal chaos mysterious energy inside spoke. "It's a bit cramped and uncomfortable. Give me a better carrier in the future. Don't worry, the prototype is already out. The optimization is very simple." Han Shao waved his hands. His strengthening skills were also very powerful. Change the carrier to a mechanical life as soon as possible. That way, at least there will be someone to communicate with me, unlike now. The primal chaos mysterious energy complained. Han Shao suddenly thought of something. "By the way, do you think I can cut you into 8 pieces and put them on different mysterious energy hosts? That way, I'll have a primal chaos mysterious energy squad." "Don't even think about it." The primal chaos mysterious energy exploded. "You're not allowed to split my body." "Absolutely. Yes. No. Yes." Such a big reaction. Is this behavior very uncomfortable to you? Han Shao was curious. He was mainly thinking about ES God's behavior in his previous life and could not help but ask. It's equivalent to you dismembering a person, and he still has to watch other people use his body parts as weapons, waving his arms and legs in battle, playing with his body and wasting his flesh. Plus, all his body parts can still feel pain, which would be transmitted back to the brain. Don't you think that's good? The primal chaos mysterious energy was dissatisfied. Just pretend I didn't mention it. Han Shao thought about it for a moment. It seemed that this scene was a little perverted. He coughed dryly and acted as if nothing had happened. He then tested the combat power of the first-generation mysterious energy host and the various ways to use his Esper abilities. The result was very satisfactory to him. As a compound super high-risk Esper ability, the primal chaos mysterious energy had a lot of abilities. It could strengthen the body, radiate powerful energy of both psychic and spatial attributes, and fly at high speed. The more advanced uses included shuttling between secondary dimensions, extracting energy from the core of a planet, invisible psychic energy, gravity springs, and so on. At this time, because the first-generation mysterious energy host had not received the bonuses of a mechanical life form and an apostle weapon, his combat power was far from reaching the beyond grade A level. However, in Han Zhao's calculations, once the mysterious energy host became an apostle weapon, with the flexibility of the primal chaos mysterious energy, he would become the strongest existence among the apostle weapons. Even Psionic Prime, who had evolved for many years, might not be his match. As long as the optimization is completed, the mysterious energy host will become my #1 fighter. He might even be able to defeat ordinary beyond grade S. Having obtained a powerful combatant, Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. At this time, Philip suddenly trembled and said, "Master, Black Star Palace sent a message. A beyond grade 8 is looking for you." "Who is it?" Han Zhao's eyes narrowed. To think that it was the Black Star Palace. Could it be that someone had gone to his territory and attacked his headquarters? That person is a little too bold. Does he think that the Black Star Palace that I spent a lot of money to build is made of paper. Plus, with the fleet in his headquarters, there are less than 2 beyond grade as. It is basically impossible for them to pose a threat to Black Star Palace. It's neither. It's the dynasty's ally, Yining. Han Xiao was stunned and a little puzzled. What is the meaning of this guy coming to my headquarters to look for me? Who's receiving him now? Did he express his intentions? Ames met him. He said that he brought a gift and wants to exchange it for the right to use the evolution cube. I see. Han Xiao understood. Back then, because he had won the battle with Yining, Yining did not have the chance to be baptized by the evolution cube. He had never mentioned it again, probably because he was looking for a bargaining chip to exchange for it. Then what did he bring me? Han Xiao was curious. It seems to be some rare blueprints. I don't know where he got them. Blueprints, that's not bad. Han Xiao had originally planned to be on good terms with Yining, so he was very lenient with his demands for Yining. As long as the other party showed a good attitude, he would lend the evolution cube. In this regard, Han Xiao's style was to treat people like Hebert differently. Even if he gave him the bloodshed land, he would not lend the evolution cube. What a coincidence. My main body is not in the headquarters. Han Xiao rubbed Philip's face with his finger. Where's the throne? Reporting to Master, we're almost at Black Star Palace. About a few hours away, Philip smiled and hugged Han Xiao's finger. Then, I'll let Ames and Yining chat for a while. I'll go over when the throne is here. As soon as the king was created, Han Xiao had the mechanical army secretly escort the locator throne and Evans back to the headquarters of Black Star Palace. It had been quite some time, and the troops had been transported through the exclusive Stargate channel of the army's territory. The speed was very fast, and they were almost home now. As long as he sent the throne home, he could use the king to teleport back instantly. As long as he did not stay for more than 3 minutes, he could activate the teleportation function again and return here. Then, he would start calculating the cooldown time. As a universal treasure, the cooldown time for teleportation was not very long. At the same time, in Black Star Palace, in the army commander's reception room, Yining sat with his hands on his knees, looking reserved and polite. Opposite him, Ames sat on the main seat with one hand supporting her chin and the other casually controlling the force field. She placed 3 glasses full of wine on the table and smiled. Don't be reserved. Drink something first. Fu Ding smiled and agreed. Your Excellency, Yining, the army commander has gone to inspect the territory. He'll be back in a few hours. Please wait for a while. Okay. Yining nodded, raised his glass, and finished it in one gulp. Ames sized up Yining's strange bright silver body with interest. I heard from Black Star that your strength is not bad. He thinks highly of your potential. Thank you. I also respect your Excellency Black Star very much. Yining looked at Ames, hesitated for a while, and said, Actually, I have a question. What do you want to say? Ames smiled and took a sip of wine. Black Star is not here. Why are you representing the army to receive me? Yining was a little hesitant. The way he saw it, although the Black Star Corps and Floating Dragon Island were allies, there did not seem to be a need for an ally to receive a beyond grade A on behalf of the host. After all, the true decision-makers here were still the officers of the army, and the Dragon Emperor should only be a guest. However, she was acting like the host now. Could it be that the rumors were true, that there was that kind of relationship between Black Star and the Dragon Emperor? What's so strange about that? Ames raised her brows. Black Star told me to come and find him. He's gone out, so of course I'm the one receiving the beyond grade A guest. Hearing this, Silver Shadow's expression suddenly became somewhat meaningful. This matter-of-fact tone. The rumors are true. He was still wondering why Ames would come all the way to the Black Star Palace, but now he understood. If the two of them had such a relationship, why else would Black Star call the Dragon Emperor over? Of course, it would be for a long night without sleep. Thinking of this, Yining could not help but be more respectful. Although he was not someone who liked to chat, he still tried his best to chat with Ames. After all, he had a favor to ask of Black Star, and a family member had come out to receive him. He could not possibly ignore her. That would be too rude. At the same time, in the Emerald Star Cluster, the Black Star Corps' frontline stronghold. A spaceship flew over from afar, slowly approaching the stronghold. Seeing this, the Army Defense Forces outside the planet's atmosphere immediately sent out 2 battleships to intercept the incoming spaceship and issued a warning in the public channel. Intruder, stop moving forward. Please report your identity immediately. After the message was sent, this unfamiliar spaceship slowly turned off and hovered outside the atmosphere. The next moment, a tyrannical energy wave suddenly erupted, and all the energy detection radars in the stronghold rang, emitting a constant warning. Boom! Warning! Warning! High energy burst detected. Matching event model. Matching complete. Model is beyond grade A energy burst. Walala! The entire stronghold was in an uproar, and the fleet outside the atmosphere immediately gathered. The cannons on the ground also raised their heads and locked onto the spaceship. A large number of battleships also quickly rose into the air, and countless cannons were aimed at this spaceship. The stronghold instantly entered combat mode. The next moment, Tolian's figure appeared in the public channel, emitting demonic flames all over his body as he laughed arrogantly. Hela, I'm here to take revenge on you. Last time, I was injured by you. This time, I'm going to wash away the shame. Do you dare fight me again? As he spoke, he fiercely suppressed the stronghold with his beyond grade A aura and headed straight for Hela. In the training room, Hela suddenly opened her eyes, and her gaze froze. Han Zhao's warning some time ago appeared in her mind, telling her to be more alert when she encountered things recently. Someone might come looking for trouble. At this moment, seeing the person who had once begged for mercy arrogantly coming to challenge her, a thought flashed through her mind. There's a trap. Does he really think I'm a martial arts fanatic? At this moment, the adjutant sent a message. Your Excellency Hela, he's challenging you. What should we do? Hela's face was indifferent as she coldly said, What's the army manual? Do you still need me to teach you how to deal with enemies approaching the stronghold? Just because the other party is a beyond grade A, you don't know what to do. Then what's the use of having you? The adjutant shrank his neck. Understood. The spaceship outside the atmosphere was surrounded by the Black Star Corps fleet. After Tolian issued the challenge, he patiently waited for Hela to appear. With Hela's personality, she's a battle maniac. When she meets my challenge, there's a 70% chance that she'll agree. Now that Kasuyi and the others are hiding not far away, as long as I try to lure her over while we fight, the ambush will be complete. Just as he was thinking about the battle plan, a strong light suddenly lit up in his vision. Tolian hurriedly looked out of the porthole, only to see the Black Star Corps fleet surrounding him open fire without even saying a word. The light of countless energy cannons filled his vision. Tolian's expression changed drastically. Damn, you're not playing by the rules. Chapter 10:51. Boom. Under the barrage of countless cannons, not a single piece of armor could escape the fate of annihilation. Not even a single piece of wreckage was left. An unstable teleportation gate opened not far away, and Tolian staggered out with lingering fear. Fortunately, he had cast a teleportation spell in advance and avoided the barrage at the last moment. Otherwise, it would have been too embarrassing to be heavily injured before the battle even began. You actually ordered your fleet to bombard me without saying a word. Shameless. Tolian was shocked and furious. How could a beyond grade A not give any face when visiting and challenging each other? Even if my intention was to challenge you, you did not even say a word before bombarding me with a barrage of cannons. That's too rude. The way he saw it, even if beyond grade As had grudges against each other, when one went to challenge the other, they would at least be polite on the surface. We're all people with status, but you directly blasted me out with a broom. Where's the etiquette between beyond grade As? This is not only embarrassing for me, but also for you. At this time, Hela's voice sounded in the public channel. You've already lost to me. Those who have been surpassed by me have no chance of catching up to me. I'm not interested in fighting you again. Hearing this, Tolian was furious. He thought he was arrogant enough, but he did not expect Hela to be even more arrogant than him. His expression changed several times, but he decided to endure it. I have a mission, so I won't argue with you. Anyway, you're basically a dead man. Tolian snorted coldly in his heart, activated a solidified magic communication rune, and contacted his teammates who were lying in ambush elsewhere. Hela did not accept the challenge. Not only did she not fall for it, but she also shamelessly bombarded me with cannons. The plan to lure her won't work. Let's change to a direct attack. At least we've confirmed that she's in the stronghold. Very soon, Sagman's reply came through the magic communication. Okay, change of plan. Begin the attack. Tolian, share your vision and locate her for us. Taylor, open the teleportation gate and attack the Stargate first. Also, preheat the space stabilization device. After we enter, seal the hyperdrive and teleportation abilities so Hela has no way to escape. We must act according to the original plan. Hela went all the way to the highest command room of the stronghold. Looking at the images transmitted back from the surveillance screen, she saw Tolian in outer space constantly dodging the fleet's attacks. Why isn't he leaving? He is indeed plotting something. Hela frowned slightly. After a moment of hesitation, she took out her communicator and sent a message to Han Shao. She wanted to discuss this with Han Shao. However, in the next moment, a strong sense of danger suddenly arose, like a chill rising from his tailbone and penetrating deep into his bone marrow. Hela's expression changed slightly. She suddenly raised her head. In her perception, several star-like energy sources suddenly appeared nearby. Warning! Warning! High energy source detected. Warning! Warning! The Stargate has been destroyed. Requesting backup. The image on the screen suddenly changed. A magic teleportation gate suddenly appeared beside the Stargate station far away, and two figures stepped out. They were Taylor and Sagman. Before the defense forces of the Stargates opened fire, the two of them attacked first without saying a word. A large number of summoned monsters surged out and blocked the defense fleet from every direction. Waves of arcane attacks with pure destructive power and endless beams of light shattered the Stargates one after another, as if they were rotten wood. The surprise attack was effective. Beside Tolian, a second super large teleportation gate appeared. The black mass of mechanical troops flowed out like a flood and spread out rapidly. The three figures at the front were Cassie's doppelganger, Desolate Beast Mercer, and Mechanical Catastrophe Francisco's Lord's Avatar, who was controlling this mechanical army. Kasui and Mercer were all old acquaintances. The one worth mentioning was Francisco, who was a direct descendant of Ethereal. He was a rather special existence. His main body had always been imprisoned in the arcane church and was usually not allowed to move around in the outside world. Only when the arcane church needed his strength would they allow him to use his Lord's Avatar in battle. If he performed meritorious deeds, his sentence would be reduced. His crime was related to his nickname, Mechanical Catastrophe, which meant that he had once caused a machine-related disaster. At the same time, it was also an acknowledgement of his strength. He was an energy branch mechanic and had a special talent. The cost of mechanical force bonuses was far lower than other mechanics of the same level. At the same time, the range of his mechanical force was far greater than other mechanics of the same level. This meant that the upper limit of the number of mechanical troops he could support at the same time was very high. The purpose of bringing Mechanical Catastrophe Francisco was to fight against the fleet of the Army stronghold and restrain the mechanical troops that Black Star had placed there. He was responsible for the battle of the army. Otherwise, with just a few beyond grade, as most of their attention would be tied up by the fleet. As soon as he entered the battlefield, Mechanical Catastrophe controlled his mechanical troops to fight against the fleet of the stronghold. With the sudden appearance of the strong enemy, the stronghold fleet was caught off guard at first. They quickly adjusted, and the battle instantly entered the climax. At the same time, Mechanical Catastrophe's troops also carried many space-time stabilizing devices, wormhole countermeasures, and other equipment. All of them were activated, and bubbles popped up immediately stabilizing the space-time of this area. This time, even teleportation spells could not be used. Seeing this, Gila's expression immediately darkened, and her expression turned serious. The enemy came prepared, 6 beyond grade, as, including a super combatant like Kasui. They want to kill me so badly? Even with Hela's strong personality, she could not help but be frightened by this. Is this the situation that Black Star faced back then? No, it might be even worse. It's practically a situation of certain death. However, her mentality only wavered for a moment before Hela adjusted, suppressing the negative emotions and turning them into battle intent. She immediately felt as if all the blood in her body was boiling. Boom! The next moment, Hela broke through the roof, flew straight into the sky, gritted her teeth, and charged toward the few beyond grade as who had locked onto her with their aura. During the charge, death energy was constantly released, turning into a bright red blood cloud. Seeing this, Red Devil, Desolate Beast, and Mechanical Catastrophe's Lord's Avatar swooped down at the same time. While the defense fleet was distracted, they quickly bypassed the blockade and collided with Hela. Boom! The momentum was earth-shattering. On the surface of the planet, a red shockwave exploded. The blood cloud formed by death energy dissipated, and the red meteor fell to the ground at an even faster speed, unable to stop. Rumble. Along the way, she smashed a large number of bases, leaving behind a ravine-like trajectory. Only then did Hela stop her momentum, and dust filled the sky. Cough, cough. In the dust, Hela got up. Her eyes were fierce. She casually wiped her bleeding nose and stared at the 3 people in the sky. In a head-on clash, she was clearly unable to withstand the attacks of the 3 of them, and was directly blown away. At this time, in the distance of a stronghold, a small black rose into the sky like a black tide, quickly approaching from the distant horizon like a flock of crows covering the sky. It was the mechanical army that Han Shao had placed in the stronghold, and the one leading was the Lord's Avatar that had already descended. The next moment, a psychic wave that covered the entire planet descended, and an ethereal voice sounded in everyone's heart. Black Star, your opponent is me. Their vision blurred, and they saw that Kasui's avatar had already blocked the path of the mechanical army. He raised a hand and pressed down. Boom! All the mechanical army was instantly pressed to the ground. Only the Lord's avatar was glowing brightly with mechanical force, barely able to hold on. Although the opponent is a machine and can't use the psychic attack that psychic power is best at, I'm also proficient in psychic power. Kasui's avatar said calmly, raised his hand, and pushed forward. A psychic wall that spanned thousands of miles was formed and pushed forward with a rumble. All the buildings and machines in front of it were pushed out and pressed against the wall. A portion of the mechanical army counterattacked toward the invisible psychic wall, but Kasui's psychic power seemed to be endless. Even though the psychic wall kept cracking under the focus fire, he did not mind squandering his psychic power to repair the damaged areas. The psychic wall's momentum was almost unstoppable. Like a board eraser, it directly wiped out a large area of the planet's surface, uprooting a large piece of land. Countless building debris, soil, and machines were pushed into outer space along the direction of the psychic wall. Other than the Lord's avatar and a few mechanical soldiers with high mobility who took the initiative to retreat, the rest of the mechanical army was pushed out of the planet by the psychic wall, far away from the battlefield where Hela was. They could only regroup in outer space. At the same time, Kasui's avatar also followed and blocked in front of Han Shao. What terrifying psychic power! Han Zhao's Lord's avatar's eyes flashed. I draw power from the void dimension. My psychic power is infinite. In terms of energy storage, perhaps only Ulu of the Radiant Federation can compare to me, Kasui said calmly. I heard that you also have a void bloodline. When your god's trait transformation reaches a certain level, you might awaken such power. Han Zhao's Lord's avatar looked around and saw the entire battle. At this moment, the planet's stronghold could be divided into 3 battlefields. Hela was fighting Red Devil, Desolate Beast, and mechanical catastrophe. She was in danger and was completely at a disadvantage. 1 against 3 was too much for the current Hela, and it looked like she would be heavily injured at any moment. However, Han Xiao knew her well. Although Hela could not beat the three of them, she could still hold on for a short period of time. After all, her lifesteal ability was quite strong, and the power of reducing her lifespan was terrifying. It affected the enemy's performance and made them not dare to exchange injuries. The second area was a large-scale army battle. The mechanical army, controlled by mechanical catastrophe, was fighting with the defense fleet of the stronghold. The battle was at a stalemate. The defense fleet mainly wanted to turn back and support Hela, while mechanical catastrophe's army was trying to pin them down. The third battlefield was Sagman and Taylor. They were attacking the Stargate station, cutting off Hela's path of retreat and the path of reinforcements. They had a huge advantage. When they destroyed all the Stargates, they would turn back and attack Hela. By then, Hela would not be able to hold on. Han Zhao's Lord's avatar wanted to stop Sagman and Taylor, but there was still some distance between the Stargate and the Stronghold planet, so he would not be able to make it in time. Furthermore, with a mechanical army in his hands, he probably would not be able to break through Kasui's blockade. The largest mech legion and apostle weapons were all with his main body and were rushing over. It would take a while for them to arrive. The situation is not good. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked at Kasui. "You're determined to stop me?" Kasui was expressionless. He retracted his mental waves and only had a one-way connection with Han Xiao. He slowly said, "This Lord's avatar of yours has to stay here with me." He emphasized the words, Lord's avatar. Han Xiao observed Kasui's meaningful expression. Suddenly, he had an idea. He controlled the Lord's avatar to charge forward with his mechanical army. Kasui was a psychic, but not only did he not fight back, he even charged forward to engage in close combat with the Lord's avatar. The battle was very intense. Those who did not know would think that there was some deep hatred between the two of them. The mechanical army around them fired. Although the shots looked very accurate, they were actually using human marksmanship, so the cannon fire always brushed past them. Kasui did not stop them and allowed these cannon fire to land on the battlefield between Hela and the three of them, interrupting the attacks of the three from time to time, forcing them to dodge and creating opportunities for Hela. At the same time, the mechanical army spread out and tried to go around Kasui. Kasui symbolically released a psychic wall, but the strength of several places was clearly weakened and was easily torn apart, allowing the mechanical soldiers to pass through. It looked like Kasui was fighting with the Lord's avatar in close combat and could not divert his attention to maintain the psychic wall. This caused a portion of Black Star's mechanical army to take the opportunity to break through the blockade and support Hela. Han Xiao finally confirmed that this guy in front of him was going easy on him. No, this was not going easy on him. This was at least releasing a flood. Why is he helping me like this? Han Zhao's mind spun rapidly. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. In the one-way mental connection, he whispered a secret code. Meeting of the gods? Acting? Focus. Acting. Han Xiaoxin's head immediately froze. Good Lord, the boss on the other side is an actor. Safe. He temporarily suppressed his restless heart. The current situation could still be maintained. He had already requested reinforcements from the dynasty. The stronghold Stargate might be destroyed, but the dynasty's reinforcements could go to the nearest Stargate. Although they would not be able to reach his stronghold directly and would take more time to provide reinforcements, it would not be too slow. Ethereal has moved, so there might be other people watching. I have to calm down and adapt to the situation. Wait for reinforcements and my main body to arrive, Han Xiao thought to himself. Under Kasui's guidance, a portion of the mechanical army successfully arrived at the battlefield where Hela was to provide reinforcements. With the mechanical force bonus from Han Xiao, the mechanical army was very strong. Even if there were not many of them, Tolian and the other two could not ignore them. With help, Hela immediately heaved a sigh of relief. She did not have to fight alone anymore, and her situation became much better. The mechanical army cooperated with her, and she knew when to advance and retreat. The death energy that had the ability to reduce one's lifespan shot out everywhere, making Tolian and Mercer extremely wary. Originally, both of them were tanks, but the one acting as the main tank was Mechanical Catastrophe's Lord's avatar. His fragile mechanical body was under pressure that this class should not have. Seeing how scared Tolian and Mercer were, Mechanical Catastrophe Francisco was completely speechless. Can you guys give me more strength? I'm not Black Star. My Lord's avatar is not that tanky. Damn it, Kasui missed someone. Is Black Star's avatar that difficult to deal with? Mercer was surprised as he dodged a round of attacks from the mechanical army. Kasui's avatar is here, after all. In order to split the battlefield, he released a powerful attack, so it's normal for his condition to deteriorate. Francisco's tone did not change at all. I didn't expect Black Star to be so strong. Not only did he block Kasui, but he also has the strength to virtual invade my army. On the other side, Red Devil Tolian was just about to speak when his shield was suddenly shattered by cannon fire. He did not manage to dodge in time and was hit by Hela's death shockwave. He immediately shivered and felt as if the message -1 had popped up above his head. Tolian could not help but look up at Kasui, who was fighting fiercely in the distance. His eyes were filled with resentment as he groaned in his heart. My lifespan has decreased again. What's going on? In the outer space of the stronghold, in the battlefield where the fleets were exchanging fire, the army players in the battleships were dumbfounded by the sudden situation. Although many players had already established or joined guilds under the name of the Black Star Corps and acted independently in the free competition zone in the form of subsidiary organizations, there were also some players who chose to follow the main force. This was especially so after the faction war order issued by the army recently. Many players gathered at the frontline stronghold and treated this place as a temporary main city. They kept recruiting and forming teams, preparing to hunt down the players of the enemy faction in the free competition zone. They did not expect that they would suddenly be attacked by multiple Beyond Grade as while staying in the Black Star stronghold. This place directly became the battlefield of 8 Beyond Grade as... What's going on? Are Beyond Grade as very rare? This is enough to fill up 2 tables of Mahjong. Could it be we've encountered big news again? Many players thought of the Battle of Planet Lighthouse in the previous version and were overjoyed. They quickly turned on the recording function and took pictures of the faces of the Beyond Grade as. This is probably a big event in this version. We've encountered it. Quick, take pictures. I have a feeling that something big is going to happen. Many players fully experienced the joy of being a spectator and were extremely excited. The sound of hurried footsteps came closer and closer. Bang! The door to the reception room was knocked open. Ames, Silver Shadow, and Fiden, who were chatting in the room, could not help but turn their heads and look at the door. They saw Aurora stumbling in with an anxious expression. Teacher, something bad has happened. What's wrong? Ames was confused. Sister is being attacked by the Arcane Church. Many Beyond Grade have gone there, and they all want to kill her. I saw it through telepathy. What? Ames suddenly stood up. Her force field exploded, and the furniture around her was blown away. After more than 10 years of training together, she and Hela were already very close. Hearing that her student was in danger, Ames was furious. At this time, a virtual screen appeared in the room. It was a call from an administrative officer. Your Excellency Ames, Your Excellency Fu Ding, something has happened. A Beyond Grade A-called traveler has visited Black Star Palace and challenged the army commander. How should we deal with this? Tell him that His Excellency Black Star is not here, Fu Ding replied. He said that if Black Star is not here, he will fight the Lord's avatar. Tell him that Black Star is very busy right now and has no time to fight him. Your Excellency Fu Ding, he said that he can't come here for nothing. If he can't find Black Star, he can also challenge Her Excellency Dragon Emperor. He's a mage. If he doesn't leave, it'll be difficult to chase him away without some special means. Fu Ding frowned and was about to speak. At this time, Ames patted his shoulder and interrupted him. This person is not here with good intentions. He probably has something up his sleeve. It might be related to Hela's matter. I'll go test him and tell him that he will accept the challenge." Hearing this, Ing, who had been silent all this while, felt that this was a good opportunity to build a relationship. If he helped Black Star's family, there would be great benefits. Thinking of this, he stepped forward and volunteered. "Your Excellency Ames, how about I go? How can I let a guest help me?" "Fu Ding, bring Your Excellency Ing to the observation deck to watch the battle." Ames waved her hand and turned around to leave the room. Her dress danced like a black flower. Her tall figure disappeared from their sight, and only one sentence floated from afar. "Don't worry, I'm not that easy to deal with." Without this chapter, I'm already a salted fish. Chapter 1052. Outside Black Star Palace, Traveler sat cross-legged in the air with his staff placed in front of his knees. He was looking at the heavily guarded Black Star Palace from afar. In front of him was the defensive fleet. "I came at the right time." Seeing this, Traveler narrowed his eyes. According to the information provided by the Supercluster Alliance, Black Star was a guy who liked to accept challenges, but he could not reject them at this time. He did not even want to use his Lord's avatar to fight with him. As expected, Sorokin's information was correct. Hela was already under attack, and Black Star had to maintain his Lord's avatar to protect her, so he could not split himself up. The Apostle weapons and mechanical army could fight on multiple fronts at will, but the Lord's avatar shared the strength of the main body. Only one avatar could descend at a time. However, Black Star did not use his Apostle weapons to fight with me. Looks like Sorokin's guess was right. Black Star has taken his main forces away. He's probably been pretending to be in his base all this time, Traveler thought. Since the opponent is the Dragon Emperor, I have to get rid of her quickly to force Black Star to make a move. Even if he only sent his mechanical army to fight with me, I've already achieved my strategy and dragged down his energy. If he wanted to end the battle quickly, he would have to use extreme methods, which would definitely offend Black Star. However, Traveler did not care. He had a special relationship with some of the supercluster civilizations, and it had already exceeded the scope of personal benefits. On the surface, he was accepting a job, but in reality, as long as this matter was helpful to the civilization he belonged to, he would not hesitate. The Supercluster Alliance hoped that Ethereal or Radiance's operation would succeed. They wanted to see these Beyond Grade as fight among themselves, but they did not want the Beyond Grade as to unite. This seemed to be a headache for the three universal civilizations, but it was more beneficial for the Supercluster. However, the effect depended on the timing. For now, the Supercluster did not want to see this. In the eyes of Supercluster civilizations, Beyond Grade as were important tools that they could make use of. However, this era was still too early, and there were not enough Beyond Grade as. Even if they worked together, their usefulness was limited. The Supercluster Alliance hoped to find a more suitable time. If there were enough Beyond Grade as in the universe by then, they would even unite the Beyond Grade as. Therefore, they did not want to waste this opportunity. Other than the consideration of balancing their strength, the other reason the Supercluster Alliance thought this way was that they were worried that if the Beyond Grade as united in advance, it would lead to another tragedy of the Pinnacles. If the three universal civilizations started to settle accounts, the first to suffer would definitely be the outsiders. Therefore, their Supercluster civilizations' allies would be massacred again, and the ones who would suffer the most would be themselves. Traveler waited silently for a while. Finally, Ames flew out of the base and arrived in front of him. The two looked at each other from afar. "You want to challenge Black Star? What do you want?" Ames narrowed her eyes. Nothing more than admiring the strong and wanting to challenge the peak. "What do I want?" Traveler's expression was calm. "Hela's matter has something to do with you, right? I don't understand what you're talking about." Traveler shook his head. "Humph, keep pretending." A green light flashed in Ames' eyes. Her force field surged, and she controlled a few satellite bricks, smashing them toward Traveler. Traveler did not panic. He held his staff with both hands, and misty magic energy gushed out, turning into rune arrays of various sizes, forming an extremely large rune shield. It looked as intricate and exquisite as a clock, blocking the path of the satellite bricks. Gotcha! A few satellite bricks slammed into the rune shield, and cracks appeared on the shield, but the attacks were blocked. At the same time, Ames reached out and pulled toward Traveler. A powerful suction force pulled Traveler toward her. While flying in the air, Traveler's eyes focused. Energy surged out of his body, and he stabilized himself. Then, he turned around and released a series of powerful spells. Multidimensional energy turned into colorful spells, rushing toward where Ames was, but they hit nothing. Space rippled, and she had already used Void Jump to move to a spot not far behind Traveler. She raised her eyebrows and glared at Traveler's back. A circle of energy burst out from between her eyebrows. The next moment, Traveler's body froze in the air, unable to move. Force field, gaze of the dragon. The moment she controlled the enemy, her black dress suddenly rose, and Ames' long leg lashed out like a whip. She threw out a force field, going straight for Traveler's back. The force field, launched from the main body, was the most powerful. This force field was highly compressed into a line, turning into a slash. It looked like she threw out a slash with her leg. Force field, sweeping blade. Whoosh! The chopping wave force field swept across and cut Traveler in half. However, the next moment, the cut Traveler suddenly shrunk and turned into an alchemy puppet. Further away, a puppet that looked like it was made of clay appeared out of thin air. It quickly transformed into Traveler's appearance. Puppet replacement, a simple trick, Traveler said calmly. Ames frowned. She was old friends with Austin, so she knew some knowledge about magic. Puppet replacement was an unpopular spell in the alchemy and curse branch. It had a huge side effect. In terms of the interface, every time puppet replacement was used, the user's health and energy would decrease by 50%, and all their attributes would temporarily decrease by 20%. It was very damaging. Because of its limited practicality, only low-level mages would use it to save their lives. High-level mages had all kinds of shields and many defensive methods, so they basically did not need to use such an unpopular spell. A beyond grade A mage would have dozens of ways to dodge or block that kind of attack. Even if they took the damage head-on, the damage would not be as good as the side effect of puppet replacement. Ames felt that Traveler definitely had a special reason for doing this. She observed carefully and realized that Traveler's temperament seemed to have changed. The corners of his mouth curled up into a faint, strange smile, and he gave off a filthy, evil aura. TSK, Force Field Control, is an Esper ability that can be found anywhere. It's very rare for you to be able to train it to the beyond grade A level. You're very talented in Esper ability control. Maybe one day, you'll be able to develop this Esper ability to the extreme and become the super high-risk Esper ability, Force Control. Although it's only a single word, the meaning is completely different. Traveler's temperament changed, and he suddenly started to talk. Something's wrong. Ames raised her guard. She clenched her hand into a claw and crushed a corner of a satellite brick. A large number of fragments shot out like a meteor shower under the control of the force field. Force field, Dragon Breath Meteor Punch. Traveler used spells to block and counterattack while observing a faint purple mark on the back of his hand. His yellow crystal eyes faintly emitted a purple evil light. My life force isn't enough. I need to sacrifice more. The two of them fought fiercely outside Black Star Palace. Traveler's fighting style was strange, occasionally sacrificing his health, while Ames used many types of force field, such as traction, compression, vibration, explosion, slash, and so on. In her hands, the force field Esper ability displayed very strong control. After bringing Hela out to train, Ames had also improved. Her control of her Esper ability had reached a new level. While the two of them were fighting fiercely, Haluz, who was watching from the watchtower in the base, quietly ordered the fleet to split up and leave, forming a huge encirclement. Focus, Haluz said in a low voice. Haluz's tone was low. Preheat the space stabilizing device. Once I give the order, activate the device and trap Traveler. This was related to the Vice Army commander, so who cared about morality? They directly attacked together. Even Ames did not plan to fight Traveler one-on-one. Regardless of whether it was a misunderstanding or not, it was best to take down Traveler first. Ames went up to fight the opponent, mainly to distract the opponent so that the fleet could secretly set up a trap. She was afraid that the opponent would open a teleportation gate and run away. At the same time, the dynasty received news from Han Shao and immediately mobilized. The Beyond Grade, as in the dynasty's territory, all received missions and set off from their territories, heading toward the Stargate station. In Kant's spaceship, the few Beyond Grade, as who were urgently gathered this time, all used remote projections to gather there. They hurried along while having a meeting. Ethereal really doesn't learn his lesson. During the battle on Planet Lighthouse more than 20 years ago, he was taught a lesson by me and Black Star. Less than 30 years later, he actually came out to cause trouble again. Bayoni curled his lips, and a few sparks flew out from between his teeth. The other party's actions are very sudden. Their target is Hela. We're the closest now, so it's best if we go over as soon as possible. Khan also became serious. Most of the dynasty's allies were assigned to the flickering world, and many of them were participating in the free competition outside. They were too far away and could not make it in time. Currently, the Beyond Grade, as in the dynasty's territory, could reach the frontline battlefield of the Black Star Corps as soon as possible. For now, only Kant's Lord's avatar, the recuperating Raven Loudy, the slacking Bayoni, and the idle Kohler were there. I heard that Kasui's avatar is also there. Isn't it a little dangerous? Kohler whispered. Kant's Kazalin glared at him. Useless. With me here, what are you afraid of? I can take down all of Ethereal alone. Really? Kohler had a doubtful expression. Nonsense, of course it's fake. Why are you still asking if you know? Can't you just let me enjoy myself? Kant rolled his eyes. If I had that ability, Dark Lord would be my follower. Raven Loudy did not interrupt. He remained silent with a gloomy expression. He had just been beaten up by Han Shao not long ago, so he was actually not very willing to help. However, every time he helped, the dynasty would provide a sizable reward and merit. It was a sponsored partnership. Forget it. I heard that the Black Star Corps is in a critical situation this time. If I help him get through this, he'll owe me a favor. By then, I can ask Black Star to get me a universal treasure. Thinking of this possibility, Ravenlaud's fighting spirit was instantly ignited. At the same time, after the dynasty sent out reinforcements, the upper echelons also paid close attention to this matter. In the conference room of the dynasty's mother planet, Ruler Unravel looked at the frontline battle footage sent back by the Black Star Corps with a cold expression. The remote projections of the dynasty's upper echelons on both sides also turned to look at the footage. The atmosphere was solemn. Ethereal still refuses to give up and wants to harm our ally again. Urinal glanced around coldly. What do you all think? Everyone exchanged glances. After a while, Beccarodi raised his hand and slowly said, Your Excellency Ruler, according to the intelligence, Ethereal's target is Hela, and Hela is not our Beyond Grade A ally. Hela is the Deputy Army Commander of the Black Star Corps, so the Black Star Corps is of course our ally. But she has always refused to join the dynasty. Your Excellency Ruler, I suggest that we separate the two matters. Black Star is Black Star, and Hela is Hela. Now that Black Star has asked for reinforcements in his own name, we're helping him out of the agreement. However, this is equivalent to him using the dynasty's strength for nothing and benefiting his own faction. My idea is we can help our ally, but we can't be used without any cost. Protecting Black Star is what we should do, but protecting a Beyond Grade A who is not our ally? No, I think we have to make a condition. We can't help him for free, Beccarodi said righteously. Then what do you think? Urinril frowned slightly. If Black Star is only able to get through this because of our help, I think we have to make a condition. Hela has to join the dynasty. Of course, she can continue to serve the Black Star Corps, but she has to become the dynasty's ally and sign an agreement. That makes sense. Uriel pondered for a while. What if Hela is killed? It's a loss for the dynasty, but there are still other benefits. If Hela dies, Black Star will definitely be on the opposite side of Ethereal. The meeting of the gods will basically be nullified, and the Beyond Grade as won't be able to unite, eliminating a threat. At the same time, having an external enemy will be beneficial to pulling the relationship between the dynasty and Black Star closer, and his loyalty will be strengthened. Therefore, whether the rescue is successful or not, the dynasty will definitely benefit, Beccarotti said. Many of the senior officials nodded. Logically speaking, they felt that Beccarotti's analysis made sense. Uriel did not comment. She tapped the table with her finger. Seeing that no one had anything else to say, she said with a deep voice, "No matter what, support the Black Star Corps with all your strength first. We'll talk about the rest later." Yes. The remote projections disappeared one after another. Uriel left the conference room. Dark Emperor Claudi, who had been waiting outside the door, covered her with the ruler's coat and followed behind. After walking for a while, Uriel suddenly said, "Claudi, what do you think is the probability of Hela being safe this time?" "Very low." Claudi was expressionless. "Even with the dynasty's help?" "That's right." "Why?" "Radiance will not just stand by and watch." "How do you know?" "The Mecha Empire told me." Uriel was speechless. "All right, this is a very good reason. I have nothing to say." It seems like the Mecha Empire really cares about the Beyond Grade A battlefront. Uriel stopped and turned to look at Claudi. "You're also a Beyond Grade A super. Don't you have any opinion on this?" Claudi's face was calm. "My first identity is a member of the Red Empire. My second identity is the captain of the personal guards of the dynasty ruler. My third identity is a Beyond Grade." Uriel shook her head and turned around. She was silent for a moment before speaking softly. "You've been my personal guard for too long. Stop your duties after a while. Go out and kill a few Beyond Grade, as before coming back. Don't let this universe forget the name of the Dark Emperor." "Okay," Claudi calmly replied. At the same time, in Beast Ancestor's stronghold, they've indeed made their move. In the hall, Garutin laughed loudly. His powerful lungs emitted sound waves that almost materialized, causing the entire base to tremble. Just a moment ago, he learned from Sorokin that the information he leaked had sent Hela into a desperate situation. His plan had succeeded, and he had taken his revenge. Garutin could not help but feel very happy. Sorokin's manifestation stood in front of him with a smile on his face. "Your Excellency, Beast Ancestor, your territory is not far from the battlefield. Do you want to join the fun?" Hearing this, Garutin stopped laughing. His sharp eyes stared straight at Sorokin, and he said with a hoarse voice, "Are you trying to bewitch me again? I wouldn't dare." Sorokin hurriedly waved his hands. "Humph." Garutin snorted coldly. He casually picked up the large wine glass beside him and gulped it down. "Anyway, I'm just going to watch the show here and wait for the news of Hela's death. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry, I'm not trying to instigate you to join the battle. The dynasty will definitely send reinforcements at this time, and they're on the way. If the dynasty's reinforcements arrive, Hela might be able to escape this calamity. So, instead of sitting here doing nothing, why don't you secretly help? What idea do you have now?" According to my calculations, the first step of Ethereal attacking the Black Star stronghold will definitely be to remove the Stargate stations and activate the space-stabilizing device to cut off Hela's escape route. Therefore, if the dynasty's reinforcements want to come, they can only go through the nearby Stargate. Your Excellency, Beast Ancestor, if the nearby Stargate stations are closed or removed, the dynasty's reinforcements will have to take a longer route. This way, Hela will be isolated for a longer period of time, and the success rate of the plan will greatly increase. Garutin's eyes sparkled. He put down his wine glass and said, What you said makes sense," Sorokin smiled. "Primeval Star River, mechanical race territory." Manison slowly opened his eyes and opened an encrypted communication channel. "Morniza, are you guys on the move?" "Teacher, the multidimensional sky opening device has started to activate. We'll set off at any time." Got it. Manison nodded, changed the channel, and spoke to the Apostle Weapons team. Keep a close eye on Beast Ancestor. He might make a move. No matter what he wants to do, stop him. Understood. After giving a few orders, Manison closed his eyes again and softly muttered to himself. Blackstar, this is all I can do for you today. Don't disappoint me. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.